Chapter 1239. Part of Ling Zhao's primordial spirit split out and entered the skeleton soldier's body. The skeleton soldier's body was huge. If Ling Zhao's primordial spirit wasn't as strong as a wandering realm cultivator, he wouldn't have been able to control it. But now there was no problem. When his primordial spirit entered the skeleton soldier's body, the scarlet light in the skeleton's eyes became even brighter. Not only that, but the weapon in the skeleton soldier's hand also turned into a giant sword that looked exactly like the shadow sword. The four monsters of the City of Sin were shocked when they saw this giant creature. This was because the skeleton soldier's strength had already reached the second Grotto Heaven realm. This was also the realm of Ling Zhao's primordial spirit. Very few people knew that Ling Zhao's primordial spirit had always been weaker than his primordial spirit. Although his cultivation kept increasing at a very fast pace, it was still very difficult for him to close the gap between his primordial spirit and his primordial spirit. This was because his primordial spirit was increasing at a faster pace. In the past, he had the help of the mountain river martial spirit. Later, he had obtained part of the human monarch's primordial spirit. Now he had even cultivated the primordial spirit remnant scroll. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to increase his cultivation and strength, he would have relied on his primordial spirit to end the battle faster. In fact, he had always treated this as one of his trump cards. The more trump cards he had, the harder it was for his enemies to see through him. Only then would he be able to live better. Today he had used the eye of the tomb of the god of sin and his primordial spirit. That was because he had no choice. If he didn't use it, he would have to die. Or he would have to use the trump cards that he didn't want to use. Butterfly Lady, Yuan Venerate, Moon Lady. The onlookers were also surprised by the giant skeleton soldier that Ling Zhao had suddenly released. Ling Zhao had surprised them time and time again. They were a little numb to it. This kid's new tricks were simply endless. What are the four of you afraid of? That skeleton soldier is just big. If you're afraid, let me know and scram. Don't embarrass yourself there. Python 5 saw that the four monsters of the City of Sin were a little hesitant, so he tried to provoke them. He didn't want to see these four guys scared off before they could even make a move. The four freaks of the City of Sin exchanged glances. Their faces were full of viciousness. Then they split into four directions and headed towards Ling Zhao with sharp blades in their hands. They were Grotto Heaven realm martial artists. Although they were only at the first Grotto Heaven realm, their opponent was only a 10 directions Heaven realm martial artist. If he was truly frightened, then how could he continue to live in the City of Sin? How could he survive in Zhenghu? The elemental energy domain exploded in the air, forming 4 elemental energy blades, chopping towards the skull of the huge skeleton soldier. Because Ling Zhao was there, they knew that the skeleton soldiers were controlled by Ling Zhao. So, as long as they could kill Ling Zhao, the skeleton soldiers would naturally be unable to move. With the 4 of them working together, let alone a Heaven realm martial artist, even a second Grotto Heaven realm martial artist would not dare to take it head-on. Of course, that was only for ordinary martial artists. Ling Zhao was different, because he was not ordinary. Roar! The huge skeleton soldier let out a muffled roar. Its body suddenly exploded into the air from the ground. It waved the huge shadow sword in its hand and slashed around its body. The huge sword energy formed a ring, scaring the 4 freaks of the City of Sin into dodging. However, the attack came too quickly. They only had enough time to block it. The 4 of them were originally attacking, but at this moment, they were knocked back by the huge ring of sword energy. Every one of them retreated more than 10 meters, crashing into Python 5's sky before stopping. This kid is tricky. Use all your strength. The leader of the 4 freaks of the City of Sin hurriedly shouted. At the same time, a ferocious tiger appeared behind him. He had finally called out his martial spirit. The other 3 called out their martial spirits as well. The shadows of an elephant, a bear, and an eagle appeared behind them. The martial spirits of the 4 freaks of the City of Sin were actually 4 animals. However, this was not the end of it. The moment their martial spirits were called out, they chose to possess their bodies. The 4 of them transformed into the appearance of a tiger, elephant, bear, and eagle. Their bodies also became much larger, and the handicaps on their bodies were naturally gone. Of course, this was not all. As Grotto Heaven realm martial artists, the 4 freaks of the City of Sin worked together to create a Grotto Heaven realm. It was a dense forest and a majestic mountain. This Grotto Heaven realm was the best way to improve their martial spirits. The skeleton soldier once again landed on the ground. It stood there silently and observed the changes of the 4 freaks of the City of Sin. The red light in its eye sockets continued to flash. Ling Xiao sat on top of the skeleton soldier's head and calmly watched all of this. The strength of the 4 freaks of the City of Sin was not to be underestimated. Individually, the 4 of them were not very strong. However, when the 4 of them worked together, they could make a 3rd Grotto Heaven realm martial artist's heart palpitate. He had truly met his match, and it was a very interesting one. Roar! The skeleton soldier roared again. Behind its previously empty back, a huge pair of wings grew out. The wings were black and white in color and looked extremely ferocious. What is going on? Could this be Ling Xiao's martial spirit? It doesn't look like it. Is it a summoned creature? Why do I feel like this is some sort of Ling Xiao's ultimate skill? Did you notice? The skeleton soldier's movements are very similar to Ling Xiao's. No matter what it is so powerful. Why don't I have something like this? Everyone looked at the giant skeleton soldier with the wings on its back. They were all envious, jealous, and confused, because they had no idea what it was. Ling Xiao slowly closed his eyes. He had already given 60% of his soul to the skeleton soldier to use. Therefore, even though he could still move his original body, it was best not to use too much energy, or else the side effects would be too great. Who cares what kind of monster it is? With the 4 of us working together, I don't believe we can't kill it. Against the giant skeleton soldier, the 4 freaks of the City of Sin transformed into 4 beasts. With the help of the Grotto Heaven realm, they all pounced on the skeleton soldier at the same time. Of course, their main target was still Ling Xiao, who was standing on top of the skeleton soldier's head. Slash. The voice came from the skeleton soldier, but it sounded more like a thicker version of Ling Xiao's voice. Though the voice was low and hoarse, it was even more dominating. A soaring aura burst out, and the huge shadow sword in the skeleton soldier's hand chopped down once again. With such a giant sword, slashing was more effective than stabbing. Virum! The air began to vibrate violently. The giant phantom sword in the skeleton soldier's hand began to spin faster. On top of the blade, black and white light intertwined. This giant sword was like a saw that cut through space and trapped the 4 freaks of the City of Sin within it. Not good. Seeing this, Python 5's expression changed. He pointed with his left hand and was about to attack Ling Xiao. He could not allow Ling Xiao to kill the 4 freaks of the City of Sin. If that happened, then his plan would not be able to proceed smoothly. Chapter 1240. Originally, Python 5 thought that the City of Sin's 4 freaks would be able to kill Ling Xiao with ease. But he didn't think that Ling Xiao would have such a trick up his sleeves. Seeing that the City of Sin's 4 freaks were in danger, how could he not help? Now that the pharmacist was dead, who would challenge Ling Xiao? How would he force the Moon Lady to waste her energy? Python 5's only fear was the Moon Lady. He wanted people who could kill Ling Xiao. Then the Moon Lady would step in and use those people to waste the Moon Lady's energy. In the end, he would kill the Moon Lady. The Moon Lady was his savior, but at the same time, she was his inner demon. He thought that if the Moon Lady was alive, she would hinder his training. After all, in his mind, The Moon Lady was far too powerful. So powerful that she was undefeatable. But when he pointed his finger, nothing happened. In the sky, a ray of light shot down, and his attack was easily dissolved. Python 5 frowned, and his face turned white. He couldn't be wrong. The one who helped Ling Xiao must be the Moon Lady. He was extremely annoyed. What was so good about this Ling Xiao? Why would the Moon Lady help him? In the sky, Ling Xiao's eyes were still closed. Currently, 90% of his soul had been split out. Only 10% was left to control his body. The other 90% was used in battle. The giant phantom sword mercilessly tore through the void and violently slashed towards the city of Sin's 4 freaks. Even the Paradise territory could not affect the power of this sword. The eagle flew away, the tiger ran away, and the bear was scared. Only the elephant monster was too slow and couldn't avoid this terrifying attack. He thought that Ling Xiao's attack this time would be the same as the one before. Little did he know that at the beginning, Ling Xiao only split out 30% of his soul. Now he split out 90%. 90% of his soul was 3 times as powerful as before. The giant elephant monster was split in half by the sword. Blood splattered everywhere. One of the city of Sin's 4 freaks, the elephant monster, had died, fighting 1 against 4. Ling Xiao was able to kill one of the Paradise Realm cultivators without being injured. This was another miracle. It was another result that left everyone dumbfounded. At this moment, the skeleton soldier was no longer an undead, summoned by the eye of the tomb of the god of sin, because it had 90% of Ling Xiao's soul. Its body complemented Ling Xiao's martial arts, and its battle prowess became terrifying. Everyone didn't know how to describe their shock, because summoned creatures weren't rare in the sealed world. But there had never been a method for a summoned creature to display their own martial arts. But Ling Xiao actually did it. What was going on? His long hair danced in the wind. His robes were whiter than snow. Ling Xiao sat there cross-legged. His eyes were closed, but he still looked very domineering. The ferocious skeleton soldier shook off the blood on its weapon. Suddenly, a red light flashed in its eye sockets, and it spoke in human language. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll kill them. If you want to steal something from me, Ling Xiao, then be prepared to lose your lives. His cold and deep words caused everyone's hearts to tremble fiercely. Ling Xiao was really too terrifying. Although the heirloom seal was precious, it wouldn't be worth it to lose one's life for it. The Eye of the God of Sin's tomb? What a beautiful name. What an artistic soul secret technique. If I can obtain it, that would be great. Corpse Granny stared at the huge skeleton soldier and felt her body tremble with excitement. To her, the existence of undead was also the source of strength, although she cultivated the witchcraft of the ancient sorcerer clan. In the end, none of them could compare to Ling Xiao's secret technique. Previously, she wanted to kill Ling Xiao, but at this moment, she wanted to capture Ling Xiao alive. It would be a pity to kill such a brat. After dodging the skeleton soldier's sword, the tiger, bear, and eagle monsters shrank in a corner of the sky and trembled, looking at the expressionless skeleton soldier that looked like a monster from hell, and then looking at the bear monster that was split in half by the blade. They didn't feel the slightest bit of anger, only fear and trembling. Too terrifying. This was only a 17-year-old young man. How could he have such powerful strength? The attack just now was definitely not a strength that a 10 Directions Heaven cultivator could display. It should be at least a Grotto Heaven realm expert. Ling Xiao cultivated the primordial spirit remnant scroll. At first, he only wanted to improve his soul power because he knew that the strength of the soul was true strength. Whether a martial artist could escape the cage of the secular world and truly set foot on the peak of martial arts depended on whether the soul could reach a certain height. But what he didn't expect was that with the strengthening of the soul and the cultivation of the primordial spirit remnant scroll, he found that the things that the essence soul could do were definitely not as simple as just using soul secret techniques. When the soul was strong to a certain extent, not only could it control all things, it could even revive the martial spirit. What was the martial spirit? There were many answers in the mystic world. Casually flipping through a book, there were thousands of explanations. But Ling Xiao firmly believed that the martial spirit and the soul were closely related. This time he controlled the skeleton soldier as an experiment. When his soul became stronger, he didn't mind using his own soul to control the martial spirit. The mystic world's martial arts, in the end, were the martial spirit and the bloodline. The martial spirit seemed to be more focused on the cultivation of the soul. The bloodline was more focused on the cultivation of the body. These two were the key to determining victory and defeat. Martial arts, godly weapons, they were all used to pave the way for these two. Through the skeleton soldier's eyes, Ling Xiao calmly looked at the three Grotto Heaven realm martial artists who were scared out of their wits. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? The 4 monsters of the City of Sin were really going to become 4 dead dogs now. When you attacked me, you probably didn't think that you would be using your lives to bear the responsibility. Die. The skeleton soldier raised its huge shadow sword once again. On the sword blade, a golden light burned, and a huge golden crow gradually took shape. Giant transformation, golden crow soaring sun. A giant golden crow was released from the giant sword and completely filled the sky above Python 5. The 3 survivors of the 4 monsters of the City of Sin couldn't avoid it. At this moment, they could only cry and shout in the sky, slapping and crashing. Python 5, let us out! Python 5, let us out! This kid is crazy. He's crazy. We're no match for him. We don't want to fight anymore. They regretted it, thoroughly regretted it. With their strength, they shouldn't have had any greed for the Imperial Jade Seal. But greed had corrupted their hearts. Coupled with Python 5's instigation, they really thought that they could kill Ling Xiao and take the Imperial Jade Seal. But now, when death came, they were truly afraid. Ah! Another blood-curdling shriek rang out in the sky as 2 more of the remaining 3 monsters were killed. The tiger and the bear weren't fast enough. Chapter 1241. Even though Python 5 had released the sky screen, the tiger and bear monsters were still unable to escape Ling Xiao's attack. They died tragically under Ling Xiao's sword, under the sword of this ferocious-looking skeleton soldier. The dignified Grotto Heaven realm martial artists did not even have the strength to fight back. They did not even have the time to escape. The eagle flew away. After all, his speed was still a little faster. He rushed out of the sky screen and flew high into the sky. He did not even dare to look at his 3 dead brothers. The only thing he could think of now was to escape. At this time, he was already scared out of his wits. He had long lost the courage to continue fighting. His heart was filled with the fear of being killed. A dignified Grotto Heaven realm martial artist had actually fled. If this matter was told to others, no one would believe it. However, right here, under the gaze of countless martial artists, he really did escape. However, would Ling Xiao let him go? The skeleton soldier stood there, the shadow sword in his hand, aimed at the eagle monster in the sky. A huge crimson sun all was condensing on the tip of the sword. Perhaps because of the skeleton soldier's huge body, it was very easy for the crimson sun all to condense. Boom! The crimson sun all pierced through the sky. The eagle monster was directly hit, and even its corpse completely disappeared. The crimson sun all exploded in the sky like a bright firework. This caused countless people to be dumbfounded. However, no one expected that Ling Xiao would not stop there. The broken fragments of the crimson sun all fell from the sky and suddenly pierced the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth of Python 5's 4 bodyguards. Ling Xiao knew very well that this sneak attack would not kill Python 5. However, it would not be a problem to kill the 4 bodyguards of Python 5. First of all, the four of them would not have expected him to suddenly attack. Secondly, the power of the fragments of the Crimson Sun all was now enough to kill a Grotto Heaven realm martial artist. Clap, 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 clap. The four bodyguards' eyes, ears, nose, and mouth were lying on the ground at the same time. Their throats had been burned black by the fragments of the Crimson Sun all. You actually killed them. Python 5's face suddenly darkened. The death of the City of Sin's four freaks was merely a setback to his plan. He wasn't really angry. What he didn't expect, however, was that Ling Xiao would kill the four bodyguards who had been following him for a long time without saying a word. These four bodyguards were rare experts of the Black Python clan. Other than him, Python Fong, Python Sky, and Python Yintu, these four people were the strongest. But today the four of them were killed so easily. After a moment of shock, Python 5's anger burned. His gaze towards Ling Xiao was filled with an incomparably terrifying killing intent. Not only will I kill them, but I will also destroy the Black Python clan. I'll make you all disappear from the City of Sin. A voice so cold that it was suffocating sounded from the skeleton soldier's mouth. I gave you face earlier, so I wasn't willing to become enemies with the Black Python clan. However, you just had to force me. You, Python 5, brought the destruction of the Black Python clan upon yourself. As he spoke, the red light in the skeleton soldier's eyes intensified. It even seemed to be emitting crimson flames. However, these flames made the Black Python clan warriors present feel waves of coldness and fear from the bottom of their hearts. More and more people gathered on the long street. Naturally, a large number of Black Python clan warriors were among them. They saw the scene of Ling Xiao killing the City of Sin's four freaks. They also saw the corpses of the warriors from Emerald Ripple Island and the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company on the ground. Ling Xiao, such a small young man, had actually done something incomparably shocking. They even blamed Python 5 in their hearts. Why did he have to provoke this malefic star? Why? Just you. Python 5 looked at Ling Xiao with disdain. Who told you that I can't find help? Are you saying that only you can use the human wave tactic and I can't even find a single helper? Ling Xiao sneered. You're shameless. Python 5 scolded. Shameless. Ling Xiao couldn't help but be stunned. Was it shameless for him to ask the Moon Maiden for help? So what if Python 5 bullied the weak and relied on the strong to bully the weak? Who was the shameless one? No wonder he was born in the military. It turned out that he liked to distort the truth. Cold Plum, Hua Fuguang, Sister Moon Maiden, you can do it now. I want the Black Python clan to disappear. Ling Xiao's patience was limited. He had never thought of destroying the Black Python clan before. However, when Python 5 announced that he had the heirloom seal, he had already made up his mind to destroy the Black Python clan. Otherwise, it would be difficult to dispel the hatred in his heart. At this time, Corpse Granny, Zhang Tianda, and the Swallow's representative retreated to the side. They were all treacherous people. At this time, no one would help. What they hoped most was that the Black Python clan and Ling Xiao would both be injured. In the end, they would be the ones to seize the heirloom seal. Ling Xiao seemed to have recognized this point. He ordered Cold Plum to deal with Python Fong, Hua Fuguang to deal with Python Tian, and Princess Yunya to deal with Python Yintu. Phoenix Cry. Piao Shui didn't intervene this time. Her purpose was to protect Ling Xiao, not to become enemies with other organizations. As long as Ling Xiao wasn't in danger, she wouldn't intervene. However, it didn't matter anymore. Without experts like Python 5, Python Yintu, Python Fong, and Python Tian, the Black Python clan was a leek waiting to be harvested for Ling Xiao. They were no threat at all. Dong! Dong! The skeleton soldiers walked towards the Black Python clan's warriors. The onlookers began to flee. This was a terrifying battle. They didn't want to be involved just because they wanted to watch the show. Ling Xiao, if you dare to touch my Black Python clanspeople, I will destroy your celestial empire. At this time, Python 5 could still maintain a high and mighty attitude. He ordered Ling Xiao around as if Ling Xiao was his subordinate. Python 5, you don't seem to understand the situation. Are you qualified to order me around now? Protect yourself first. Ling Xiao glanced at Python 5 disdainfully. He was indeed no match for Python 5 now, but he didn't need to deal with all enemies by himself. Why wouldn't he use a powerful helper like the Moon Maiden? The Moon Maiden in the sky had long been unable to suppress her murderous intent. So many people had come to make trouble for Ling Xiao today. She wanted to kill everyone from the beginning. However, Ling Xiao stopped her because Ling Xiao wanted to train. She had been suppressing her anger until now. In the end, Python 5 dared to provoke her. He was really unlucky. In the sky, a ray of moonlight fell and directly hit Python 5. Fortunately, Python 5 dodged quickly and only lost an arm. Otherwise, he would have died at the hands of the Moon Maiden. Run! Python 5 finally understood the terror of the Moon Maiden. This woman was still as terrifying as before. Even though his cultivation had reached the Yin-Yang realm, he was still not worth mentioning in front of this woman. The only thing he could think of was to run away. There was no other choice. The Moon Lady chased after Ling Xiao relentlessly. She wanted everyone who had attacked Ling Xiao to taste the taste of pain. Corpse Grandma, Zhang Tianda, and Yan's representative were also frightened by this scene. Chapter 1242. Corpse Granny, Zhang Tianda, and Representative Yan all thought that Python 5 would be able to hold off the Moon Lady for a while, but who would have thought that he would be scared out of his wits by the Moon Lady's attack? How was he still that powerful and ambitious person? He was simply a piece of trash. At this moment, how could they dare to stay in the same place? However, because they still wanted to get the Imperial Ruler's seal. Even though they had escaped, they did not go far. They were still hiding in the City of Sin, waiting for an opportunity to get the Imperial Ruler's seal. Ling Xiao had already rushed into the crowd of the Black Python clan and started a massacre. There was no sympathy or mercy in those empty skeletal eyes. Only slaughter could stop the slaughter. Only force could fight against force. No matter how many words some people said to persuade others to put down their weapons, in reality, countless facts had proven one thing. Killing to stop killing was the true way of the king. No dynasty had ever been built on a foundation without bloodshed. Because in this cruel world, if you did not kill others, others would kill you. If you sympathized with others, what you got in return would not be gratitude, but would only be repaid with enmity. Soon, all the warriors of the Black Python clan had turned into cold corpses. Ling Xiao did not vent his anger. He soared into the sky and landed on the Black Python clan's mansion. After confirming that the everlasting Joy ancestor and the others were not inside, he destroyed the mansion as well. This was not only to vent his anger, but also a warning. He wanted to tell the world that whoever dared to provoke Ling Xiao, the Black Python clan, was the best example. On the other side, Python Sky and Python Yunta were killed. Only Python Phone was still holding on bitterly. Seeing the members of the Black Python clan die tragically on the spot, his heart simply twitched. He hated himself. Why did he not stop Python 5 from finding trouble with Ling Xiao? If he had stopped him, the outcome would not have been like this. The onlookers trembled. Today, they finally understood a fact. The Celestial Emperor of the Celestial Empire was not a flower raised in a greenhouse. He was a terrifying existence, an existence who truly had the ability to make his enemies' lives worse than death. Perhaps the Imperial Jade Seal really belonged to him. Only a truly powerful person deserved such a treasure. I regret it so much. With a mournful wail, Python Wind was stabbed to death by Cold Plum. At the moment of his death, he finally came to a realization. since Ling Xiao dared to come to the City of Sin. He wasn't someone who was afraid of trouble. Ling Xiao knew that the imperial ruler's seal was a hot potato, yet he was still unwilling to throw it out. That was even more terrifying. This meant that this young man was confident enough to control the imperial jade seal. Just like when the human king had the imperial jade seal, no one dared to snatch it from him. For many people, this was a hot potato, but for Ling Xiao, it was a must. He knew that from today onwards, he would encounter all sorts of troubles. Many people would want to take action against him for the imperial seal. However, he didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he felt an immense excitement deep in his soul. The more enemies there were, the better. That way, he could continue to improve his strength. His strength didn't come from sitting there and cultivating. Instead, it came from constant battles. If one could become an expert just by meditating, then wouldn't it be too worthless to become an expert? The battle was over. The City of Sin was in a mess. Ling Xiao announced one thing in front of everyone. The imperial ruler's seal is in my hands. Whoever wants it can come and take it. However, before you come, think about it. The Black Python clan is your example. I won't leave anyone alive. Just as Ling Xiao made this announcement, the Moon Lady returned. Python 5's corpse was thrown onto the long street. That was the corpse of a Yin-Yang realm warrior. Even a powerful expert like Python 5 was killed. How terrifying was the woman beside Ling Xiao. Eye of the divine pot, collect! Ling Xiao wouldn't let Python 5's corpse go to waste. Although he was already dead, the soul power and Yin-Yang energy in Python 5's body were extremely shocking. These couldn't be wasted. It was crucial for Ling Xiao to break through and improve his cultivation. One battle caused everyone in the City of Sin to panic. Many people even thought that the alchemy conference that was about to begin would be impossible now that the Black Python clan had fallen. After all, the alchemy conference in the City of Sin had always been hosted by the Black Python clan. However, just as everyone was panicking, the Everlasting Joy Patriarch of the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island appeared. The old man was like an old immortal who had attained immortality. He sat on a sedan chair. The sedan chair was actually suspended in midair. No one was lifting it. From this, it could be seen that the Everlasting Joy Patriarch's poison was almost cured. His cultivation was also almost recovered. Everyone, the Black Python clan, brought this upon themselves. As for other matters, they're not as important as the alchemy conference. The Everlasting Joy Patriarch said loudly, in the past the alchemy conference was hosted by the Black Python clan. This time, I hereby announce that this alchemy conference will be the last one held in the City of Sin. The Everlasting Joy Celestial Island will host it. In the future, the alchemy conference will be held on the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island. The Everlasting Joy Patriarch was also impressive. The alchemy conference was an important event to test the abilities of alchemists. In the past, the scale of the alchemy conference was not small. Unfortunately, the influence of the Black Python clan was limited. Therefore, there were still fewer alchemists who came. This time he was going to host the conference in the name of the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island. Basically, all the young alchemists from the Heavenly Dragon Continent, the Divine Phoenix Continent, and the nearby sea regions would come. Even the White Tiger Continent might send some outstanding young alchemists to participate. Due to some last-minute changes, this alchemy conference will be postponed for 3 days in order to make it more convenient for the alchemists to go to the City of Sin. After announcing this matter, the Everlasting Joy Patriarch left the scene. However, before he left, he nodded at Ling Xiao. This was also a kind of attitude. Although he didn't say anything, he showed that he wouldn't blame Ling Xiao for going against the Black Python clan. After all, the Black Python clan had a deep relationship with the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island. Thank you. Ling Xiao had already dismissed the skeleton soldiers. Although he felt that his body was swaying as if it didn't belong to him anymore, he still managed to say a word of thanks. After that, he returned to Princess Yunya's residence under the escort of Cold Plum and the others. When he arrived, Ling Xiao simply fell asleep. It was really too tiring. Although using the primordial spirit to fight was much more powerful than using his own body to fight, it was also much more tiring. In particular, the after effects were too great. He really couldn't bear it. Perhaps the everlasting joy patriarch announcing the postponement of the alchemy conference was actually a good thing for him. Ling Xiao rested for 2 full days. On the 3rd day, he finally woke up from his deep sleep. During these 2 days, some subtle changes occurred in the City of Sin. Chapter 1243. The smell of blood on the street had long been washed away. The ruins of the Black Python clan had been cleaned up and a huge plaza had been temporarily built. This should be the venue for the alchemy conference. There were many magic treasures in the profound world anyway. It was very easy to create a perfect venue for the conference. Not only that, the number of outstanding alchemists that had rushed to Sin City in the past 2 days had also increased. The everlasting joy ancestor stipulated that alchemists from the heavenly dragon continent, divine phoenix continent, and the nearby seas could participate in the alchemy conference. There were no age restrictions or racial restrictions. This was a lot more relaxed than the previous alchemy conference. Perhaps it was because of this that this conference had attracted a lot of attention. Even the Divine Phoenix Empire had sent people from Phoenix Cry Mountain to watch the competition. There were also imperial physicians from the palace who had come to participate. Similarly, the Everlasting Joy Immortal Island had also sent many alchemists. One of them was very eye-catching. His name was Dan Qing. Dan Qing was only in his early 30s, but he was one of the best alchemists on the Everlasting Joy Immortal Island. His rank in the Alchemist Association was Peak Yellow Grade, and the badge Ling Xiao was currently wearing was High Yellow Grade. Because it was already the last day before the Alchemy Conference, Phoenix Cry, Fluttering Snow, brought the Everlasting Joy ancestors order to visit Ling Xiao. At this time, Ling Xiao was stretching his limbs in the courtyard. After sleeping for 2 days, he felt as if his body was going to rust. It was not very comfortable, so he practiced in the courtyard to recover. Suddenly, a man and a woman appeared in his line of sight. The woman's clothes were whiter than snow. However, her clothes were decorated with beautiful and elegant snowflakes. It was very different from the pure white clothes that Ling Xiao had worn before. Her steps were light and graceful. It was obvious that she had been strictly educated since she was young. That was why she had such beautiful steps. Yun Ye's residence had been changed to the guards and attendants of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company. At this time, the eyes of many bodyguards seemed to be attracted by the graceful steps of the young girl. They stared at her without blinking. Ever since Zhang Tiande escaped, the area manager of the first 2 continents that belonged to the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company had changed to Yunya. It had to be said that the efficiency of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company was very high. Although they did not send people to kill Zhang Tiande, they announced that Zhang Tiande was kicked out of the trading company. This was a very smart move. It was also a helpless move, because on this side, no one was more convincing than Princess Yunya. Even if the higher-ups wanted to send a manager over, the manager would probably be a mere figurehead. Therefore, the headquarters of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company naturally took advantage of the situation. It was not a bad thing to do her a favor without offending Princess Yunya. The woman was, of course, Phoenix Cry Piao Shui. Perhaps in Ling Xiao's eyes, this woman was nothing. After all, she had the Moon Lady, Ling Yixue and Cold Plum as a foil. However, in the eyes of other men, she was a goddess, the lover of their dreams. The man walking beside Feng Ming and Piao Shui was dressed in an elegant long robe with golden edges. He was natural and unrestrained and exuded a noble aura. The man's figure was a little thin, but he still walked steadily. His smile, in particular, was like the radiance of the spring sun that could melt the coldness in the hearts of young girls. Of course, this man's delicate and handsome appearance was not considered a characteristic. After all, in the mystic world, due to the difference in martial souls and cultivation methods, it was normal for many people to be delicate and handsome. The key was actually the badge on the man's chest. It was actually a top yellow grade badge issued by the Pharmacist Association. What did this mean? It meant that this man, who was about 30 years old, was actually a top yellow grade pharmacist. Within the range of the first 2 continents, he was definitely a top pharmacist. Perhaps in the past, some people would have thought that this man walking beside the woman was a toad lusting after a swan's meat. It was inevitable that others would be jealous and unhappy. However, after seeing this badge, those jealousy and unhappiness instantly disappeared and were replaced by admiration and shock. This man was one of the pharmacists sent by the Changel celestial island, Danqing. Moreover, Danqing fell in love with Feng Ming and Piao Shui at first sight. After seeing Feng Ming and Piao Shui, he directly went to Ancestor Changel to propose marriage. This bold move not only did not make Ancestor Changel angry, but also praised him for his bravery and even promised to match the 2 of them. After all, to Ancestor Changel, a genius pharmacist like Danqing was incomparably important to the Changel celestial island. Although Ling Xiao had cured his poison, this did not prove his full ability. Moreover, Ling Xiao was not a cultivator of the Changel celestial island. It was normal for him to be more willing to match Danqing with Feng Ming and Piao Shui. Of course, on the surface, it seemed like a perfect match, a match made in heaven, and a match made in heaven could be used to describe the 2 of them. The crowd could not help but cast envious and amazed gazes. At this moment, the 2 of them had become the most beautiful scenery in Yun Ya's residence. Ling Xiao looked at the 2 of them and smiled slightly. Ling Xiao, this is senior brother Danqing from the Changel celestial island. He is also a pharmacist and will be participating in the alchemy conference this time. Feng Ming and Piao Shui walked forward and introduced them to Ling Xiao with a smile. I can see that. A top yellow-level pharmacist at such a young age is really amazing. Ling Xiao was indeed somewhat impressed by Danqing. After all, to be able to reach such a level in his 30s, his talent was even stronger than Sun Shang's in the past. Are you the young hero Ling that the ancestor often talks about? You don't look like you're 20 years old. Are you really a yellow-level pharmacist? Danqing looked at Ling Xiao with some arrogance and doubt. He seemed to not believe that there was someone in this world who was more talented than him. Danqing, what are you talking about? He saved my grandfather's life. Don't you even have the most basic respect for him? Feng Ming and Piao Shui were a little unhappy. Haha, I'm sorry, Piao Shui. I just don't believe that it's his ability. Danqing smiled faintly and said, perhaps there is an expert behind him who is giving him pointers. Ling Xiao originally had a good impression of Danqing, but now he was a little unhappy. He had saved the Changel ancestor, and even the ancestor was polite to him. How dare this guy look down on him? Was it because this guy had some talent? He couldn't help but laugh coldly in his heart. Since the alchemy conference was about to begin, he didn't need to explain or argue. When the day of the alchemy conference began, it would be clear who was more powerful. Brother Danqing, you will soon know whether or not I have an expert to give me pointers. I only hope that as the representative of the Changel celestial island, you won't embarrass yourself at the alchemy conference. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and said, if the 2 of you have nothing else to say today, you may leave. I just woke up and have many things to do. Chapter 1244. Phoenix Cry Piao Shui felt helpless. If she had known, she wouldn't have brought Danqing here. All right, Ling Xiao, recover well. We'll see you at the alchemy conference tomorrow. Piao Shui, is this Ling Xiao really as powerful as you said? He's not even 20 yet, right? Danqing asked with a frown as he watched Ling Xiao return to his room. He hasn't even celebrated his 17th birthday yet. Dan Qing, although your grade is higher than his, you can't underestimate him. Not only does he have the true Samadhi flame and the dark flame of death, but his medical skills are also brilliant. Phoenix Cry Piao Shui looked at Ling Zhao's back, her beautiful eyes shining. She secretly lamented that she didn't discover Ling Zhao's many good points earlier. Now that Ling Zhao had so many good women by his side, she couldn't even get a foot in. Dan Qing, who was at the side, glanced at Feng Ming Piao Shui and realized that the woman he liked was admiring another man in such an unscrupulous manner. He immediately felt a strong sense of jealousy and clenched his fists tightly. Piao Shui, do you really know that Ling Zhao? This person came to the city of sin and turned it upside down. If you get too close to him, I'm afraid you'll implicate eternal joy, Celestial Island. Dan Qing said. What do you mean? Hearing this, Phoenix Cry Piao Shui couldn't help but frown. Ling Zhao is the benefactor who saved my grandfather. I only know that he's the benefactor of eternal joy, Celestial Island. Whether or not he's a troublemaker, whether or not he'll bring trouble to eternal joy, Celestial Island, what does it matter? But this person isn't easy to deal with. He killed Python 5 and offended Water God Temple and Emerald Wave Island. There's too much trouble. Dan Qing said again. Feng Ming Piao Shui glanced at Dan Qing with slight annoyance and said, Big brother Dan Qing, you're the most talented alchemist on Changle Celestial Island. Can you not be so narrow-minded and short-sighted? You only saw who he offended, but you didn't see that he also had the support of the Moon Maiden, the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company's Princess Yunya, the Divine Phoenix Empire's Qingshu College, our everlasting joy Celestial Island, and the Celestial Empire behind him. We don't want to be friends with him, but we want to be his enemy. What kind of logic is this? You've seen what happened to the Black Python clan. Python 5 couldn't even withstand a single blow from that Moon Lady. Ha, Sister Piao Shui, you're exaggerating. I'm just concerned about you. After all, this is the first time I've met Ling Zhao. There's no enmity between us, so why would I hate him? Dan Qing was infuriated because Feng Ming Piao Shui was protecting Ling Zhao, and also because Ling Zhao's luck was too good. His mentality was somewhat unbalanced. However, this person wasn't an ordinary person after all, so he still revealed a faint smile on his face. He didn't want to completely fall out with Feng Ming Piao Shui because of Ling Zhao. That wouldn't be worth it. That's right, brother Dan Qing. Ling Zhao's current grade may not be as high as yours, but he's knowledgeable and knows too many things. If you don't work hard, the title of the strongest pharmacist of the younger generation will really be taken away by him. Feng Ming Piao Shui smiled and said, Also, grandfather asked me to remind you not to act recklessly. Otherwise, the unlucky ones won't be Ling Zhao, but us. Those people who were killed that day are examples. Let's go. After walking out of Yunya's residence and seeing Feng Ming Piao Shui's lithe figure, Dan Qing's heart was instantly filled with anger. Piao Shui, the ancestor, said that as long as I become the champion of the alchemy conference, he'll let us get married. He chased after Feng Ming Piao Shui and grabbed her hand. Feng Ming Piao Shui flung his hand away, then looked at him very calmly and said, We'll talk about this after you become the champion of the alchemy conference. I'm afraid that you're not even as good as Ling Zhao. She seemed to be a little angry and quickened her pace to leave. Dan Qing stood there with a gloomy expression. He turned back to look at Yunya's residence and gritted his teeth. Ling Zhao, I'll definitely let you know what a real pharmacist is at the alchemy conference. He was the pharmacist of the Changle Celestial Island, and his master was the strongest pharmacist of the White Tiger continent Medicine King Sun saw. He believed that no one on the first 2 continents would be his match. After saying that, Dan Qing quickly turned and left. There were some things that needed to be properly prepared. Ling Xiao stayed in his residence for a while and felt that his body had almost recovered. Considering that tomorrow was the day of the alchemy conference, he decided to go to the Changel ancestor to inquire about some things. After all, until now, he really didn't know how the alchemy conference would be conducted. After leaving Yunya's residence, Ling Xiao had just arrived at the residence of the Changel ancestor, which was also the venue of the alchemy conference. That place was originally the ruins of the Black Python clan's residence, but it had been rebuilt. Although it wasn't considered luxurious, it was definitely a grand place. The words Alchemy Conference were hung above the door at the entrance. The atmosphere was already very intense. Along the way, Ling Xiao realized that there were many more martial artists maintaining order in the city of Sin. Some of these people were local martial artists of the city of Sin, while others were martial artists of the Changel Celestial Island. However, they were all wearing the same uniform with the symbol of the Alchemy Conference embroidered on it. If he guessed correctly, this should be the work of the Changel ancestor. In the past, when the Black Python clan was still around, the Alchemy Conference's scale was relatively small. Relying on the Black Python clan alone was enough to maintain order in the conference. However, the scale of the Alchemy Conference this time was obviously much larger. That was why the Changel ancestor had organized so many experts to maintain order. After all, if such a grand event were to really cause trouble, there would be a lot of casualties. When that happens, the Changel Celestial Island's reputation would be affected as well. After all, they were the hosts of the Alchemy Conference. If something were to happen, they would be the ones to be scolded. At this time, there was a hubbub of voices outside the Alchemy Conference. The number of alchemists from the 2 continents and the nearby seas was at least 10 times more than 2 days ago. It could be said that the surrounding people were jostling shoulder to shoulder, and it was extremely crowded. It was no wonder. This was the first time the Changel Celestial Island hosted such a grand event. Naturally, many alchemists hoped to use this alchemy conference to let the world know of their existence. If they were chosen by the 5 Immortal Island, the 7 Martial Grandmaster Island, or the 2 Empires, then they wouldn't have to worry about wealth in the future. Ling Xiao was about to use his exquisite technique to enter and find the Changel ancestor when the crowd suddenly became restless. The people who were originally crowding at the entrance actually took the initiative to open up a path. Ling Xiao curiously looked towards the middle of the road and realized that there was a luxurious sedan chair there. The sedan chair was completely decorated with gold, silver, and jewels. It looked extremely beautiful and not tacky at all. Of course, the sedan chair wasn't the main point. The main point was that there were 4 rarely seen beautiful women carrying the sedan chair. The most terrifying thing was that the cultivation of these 4 beautiful women had reached the late stage of the Grotto Heaven realm. Are they the alchemist representatives of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company? Ling Xiao couldn't help but mutter to himself. Chapter 1245. The reason why Ling Xiao judged that the 4 women were from the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company was mainly because he found that these 4 beautiful women all had the same mark as Princess Yunya. Therefore, he was basically sure that the people sitting in the palanquin must be the representatives of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company who came to participate in this alchemy conference. Sure enough, the one following behind the palanquin with a wry smile on her face was Princess Yunya. Obviously, Princess Yunya was a little dissatisfied with the way the owner of the palanquin appeared. The 4 beautiful women landed on the ground, and the palanquin was gently put down. The gauze curtain was lifted, and a lively figure jumped down from the palanquin. Hee, there are so many people. However, I, Jiluyu, naturally want to win the championship. The girl did not hide her ambition at all. Her voice wasn't soft at all. Everyone in the surroundings could hear her clearly. Who is this girl? Why is she so arrogant? Someone asked. Sure, don't be so loud. Don't you know? She is the treasured disciple of the White Tiger Continent's Medicine King Sun Saw. She is also the deputy manager of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company in the White Tiger continent. Not only is she super strong, but her alchemy skills are even more amazing. Among the crowd, there were naturally people who were experienced and knowledgeable and recognized the girl's identity. She's probably only 18 or 19 years old. She's actually a yellow-level super pharmacist. Someone noticed the Pharmacist Association badge that Ji Luoyu was wearing and was suddenly shocked. You didn't see wrongly. This is a figure known as the Little Medicine King in the White Tiger continent. Although it's impossible for her to learn all of Medicine King Sun Sa's abilities with her medical skills, she is absolutely invincible in the Sky Dragon and Divine Phoenix continents. What? Hearing this, the crowd was in an uproar. Many older pharmacists lowered their heads and sighed, their faces red. Some of them were over 100 years old, but their pharmacist ranks were not as high as a little girl's. They really felt a little ashamed. Ling Xiao naturally heard these discussions. He was also a little surprised by this little medicine king, Ji Liu. This girl should be only 2 or 3 years older than him, but her cultivation was much stronger than his. Her pharmacist rank had actually reached the highest level of the yellow level, which was even better than Danqing. Sure enough, the closer they got to the Heaven's Chosen Gate, the stronger their opponents became. If Ling Xiao really wanted to realize his great ambition of reshaping the human race's celestial empire, his current strength was not qualified at all. Once he reached the Paradise State, he would have to think of a way to head over to the White Tiger mainland. Perhaps he might be able to obtain even more fortuitous encounters over there, allowing his cultivation state to rise even faster. Naturally, his strength would rise even faster as well. Luoyu, aren't you talking a little too big? According to my knowledge, there are 2 people who are probably not weaker than you. At this time, Princess Yunya also came forward and said to Ji Luoyu with a smile, "Oh, I know. One is Dan Qing from the Chang'e Celestial Island, and the other is Ling Xiao, whom you can't forget. But it doesn't matter. They are no match for me." Ji Luoyu smiled, then walked into the alchemy conference with her 4 bodyguards. Although the alchemy conference hadn't started yet, some of the alchemists who had just arrived still wanted to inquire about the rules. Ji Luoyu was no exception. Ling Xiao smiled. Ji Luoyu was powerful, but unfortunately, she was no match for him. He had the help of the mountain and river martial soul, and the Tai Chi Eye. Among the yellow-level alchemists, there was basically no match for him. During the alchemy conference, let me see just how powerful this proud little sister of yours is. After thinking about it secretly, Ling Xiao's figure suddenly disappeared. He used the shadow step to slip through the crowd. He rushed into the alchemy conference square. After entering, it was obvious that the space was much more spacious. Ling Xiao simply showed himself. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would be mistaken as an assassin. The Chang'e ancestors' residence was easy to find. His soul power was so strong that he could sense it slightly. The security inside was tight, but after seeing Ling Xiao, they didn't stop him. They even smiled at him. Ling Xiao thought that this was most likely the Chang'e ancestors' order. Although this old man didn't help him on the street, he was quite satisfied with the small things he did. Compared to many people who repay kindness with enmity, this old man was much better. "Little friend, come in." Before Ling Xiao knocked on the door, the Chang'e ancestor's voice came from inside. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This martial artist with a profound cultivation must have a strong soul power. Walking into the room, the Chang'e ancestor was leaning on the soft couch and drinking tea. Although his body had basically recovered, it wasn't suitable for him to cultivate or be overly tired. He still needed to rest more. The old man he saw before was standing at the side with his hands behind his back, waiting on him. "Little friend, did you come to find this old man today because of the alchemy conference?" The Chang'e ancestor asked straightforwardly. "That's right. Because I was in a coma for the past 2 days, I didn't ask clearly how the alchemy conference was going to be held and how to participate. I think with so many people here, it can't be that they are going to compete together, right? Ling Xiao sat down and asked. The number of people is indeed more than 10 times more than in the past, but it doesn't matter. The competition venue this time is also very big. Moreover, our competition will be divided into several stages. With each stage, the difficulty will increase significantly. The Changle ancestor replied, It's a little similar to the preliminaries of the martial arts tournament. Ling Xiao said, Yes, it's more or less like that. You don't have to worry about the specific process. Just come tomorrow and participate. Naturally, someone will arrange everything. If our Changle Celestial Island doesn't even have the ability to do this, it'll really be too embarrassing. The Changle ancestor nodded and said, Little friend Ling Xiao, there are many experts in the competition this time. Not only are there representatives from the 5 immortal islands, but there are also representatives from the White Tiger continent. I'm afraid you'll be under a lot of pressure. Ling Xiao smiled. He had already guessed this after meeting Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu. The Changle Celestial Island's influence was much greater than that of the Black Python clan. Therefore, when they held the alchemy conference, there would definitely be many people who would support them. This time was too tight, so some reclusive alchemists were unable to participate. Even so, the quality of the alchemists participating in this conference was still much higher than before. I understand. I saw Medicine King's son, Saw's disciple, Ji Luoyu, outside the door just now. She should be the highest grade among this batch of participants, right? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. No, her overall strength can only be ranked 4th. There are 3 older alchemists in front of her. Although their grades are the same as hers, they are much more experienced. The Changle ancestor explained. I see. Ling Xiao nodded. This alchemy conference did not have an age restriction, so it was normal for such a situation to occur. In this alchemy conference, there are a total of 4 yellow-grade super alchemists, 10 top-grade alchemists, and as many as 100 high-grade alchemists. Therefore, you're under a lot of pressure. Do you want me to help you? The Changle ancestor asked with a smile. Chapter 1246. The Everlasting Joy ancestor proposed to help Ling Xiao in the alchemy conference. That won't be necessary. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, I have confidence in myself. If that's the case, then this old man won't say more. Let's talk about the Imperial Jade Seal. The Everlasting Joy ancestor suddenly changed the topic. What's wrong with the Imperial Jade Seal? Ling Xiao asked with a half-smile. Young friend, don't misunderstand. This old man just wants to remind you that after you spread the news that the Imperial Jade Seal is in your hands, many people unrelated to the alchemy conference came to the City of Sin. They might attack you at any time. The Everlasting Joy ancestor reminded. Thank you for your concern, Senior. However, I've made myself very clear. If you want the Imperial Jade Seal, it's fine. However, if you implicate the 10 clans, I hope they won't regret it. Ling Xiao's words were both confident and a warning. He knew that the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island also coveted the Imperial Jade Seal. However, they didn't dare to openly snatch it because they were afraid of the Moon Maiden. However, if he guessed correctly, the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island must be secretly eyeing the Imperial Jade Seal as well. That's true. However, young friend, have you ever thought that if people join forces to snatch the Imperial Jade Seal, can the Moon Maiden stop them all? Even if she can, you won't even be able to sleep or cultivate in peace. Are you really willing to be coveted by others? The Everlasting Joy ancestor said again. That's a problem. What's the Everlasting Joy ancestor's opinion on the arrangement? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Actually, it's quite simple. There's a Vajra island in the 7 martial sect islands. There's a Vajra pagoda on the Vajra island. As long as you put something in there, even an yin-yang realm martial artist won't be able to snatch it away. The Everlasting Joy ancestor said, This old man suggests that you put the imperial jade seal in the Vajra pagoda first and take it out when you have the ability to use it. That's a good idea. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a mocking smile, but it soon disappeared. He knew that this was just a small trick the everlasting joy ancestor had used to obtain the imperial jade seal. Since that was the case, why not follow his heart? His mountain river martial spirit could replicate anything, including the imperial ruler's seal. Of course, compared to the real thing, the replicated imperial ruler's seal would lose its special effects. It would just look the same and be made of the same material. However, other than him, no one else knew about this. If he could use a replica to divert the trouble away, it would be a smart choice. Patriarch Chang'e was right about one thing. He did not have the qualifications to use the imperial ruler's seal. He could only rely on the Moon Maiden. If he insisted on using it, he might hurt the Moon Maiden. How do I get to Diamond Island? Ling Xiao asked. After the alchemy conference ends, this old man will personally bring you there. Ancestor Chang'e's eyes revealed a hint of excitement, but he quickly concealed it. All right, I'll take my leave now. I'll come back tomorrow to participate in the alchemy conference. Ling Xiao stood up and said, There's no hurry. Maybe there's something you'll be interested in. Old Ancestor Chang'e said, Oh, it's like this. According to the rules of the conference, the top 20 pharmacists can participate in a ranking test before the start of the conference so that they can be re-ranked. This ranking will affect the selection of cauldrons, herbs, and other matters on the day of the conference. It's quite important. Do you want to give it a try? But I don't think I can make it into the top 20, right? Ling Xiao asked. Don't worry. Even if you can't make it into the top 20, you can still participate in the test. I forgot to tell you that after the test, regardless of your ranking, you'll get a souvenir. The higher your ranking, the better the souvenir. Old Ancestor Chang'e said domineeringly. If that's the case, this junior will accept. Ling Xiao was actually not too interested in the souvenir. He was more interested in probing the strength of his opponents in advance. This way, it would be convenient to be prepared. Since you're willing, follow this old man. Old Ancestor Chang'e personally brought Ling Xiao to a building somewhere in the alchemy conference. This was an independent building that was clearly built using some kind of magic treasure. It actually looked somewhat majestic and dignified. Creak! As the door opened, there was a sudden clamor from inside. There were also countless pairs of slightly hostile eyes. Ling Xiao looked up and saw that Dan Qing and Ji Lui were indeed inside. Among the 20 pharmacists standing inside, there were 4 yellow-level super pharmacists, 10 yellow-level peak-level pharmacists, and 6 yellow-level advanced pharmacists who were outstanding. When Ling Xiao and Old Ancestor Chang'e walked into the hall, these people's gazes were all directed at them. When they first saw Old Ancestor Chang'e, they were somewhat surprised. However, when they saw him, they all revealed expressions of disdain. Ling Xiao was also wearing a yellow-level advanced pharmacist badge. However, that badge was clearly brand new and had been obtained not long ago. This meant that he was only a newbie among the yellow-level advanced pharmacists. Most people in this hall would probably not take him seriously, especially when they saw Ling Xiao's age. These people revealed even more disdain. When Dan Qing saw Ling Xiao, he was clearly somewhat astonished. However, after a moment, he revealed a cold smile. He had probably guessed that Old Ancestor Chang'e wanted Ling Xiao to participate in this pre-competition prediction. He wanted to make a fool of Ling Xiao at the alchemy conference. However, he could not wait any longer. During the test later, he would be able to make Ling Xiao face reality. As for the young medicine king, Jiu, she only casually glanced at Ling Xiao before retracting her gaze and chatting with the pharmacists at the side. She was definitely like a moon surrounded by stars. Those who surrounded her, regardless of whether they were male or female, all had expressions of admiration and envy. However, regardless of the gazes in the hall, Ling Xiao's expression remained calm. At the side, old ancestor Changle could not help but secretly praise, as expected of a leader among the younger generation. Facing so many malicious gazes, he can still remain so calm. Amazing. However, he did not know that Ling Xiao was calm because he was confident. Not only was Ling Xiao not nervous, but he also wanted to laugh. Old ancestor, why are you here? An unfamiliar face in the hall came forward and asked. This person should also be from Changle Immortal Island. He was very respectful to old ancestor Changle. Yes, I brought a little fellow to participate in the test. If he can enter the top 20, write his name in. Old ancestor Changle said indifferently. Old ancestor, I'm afraid this is not good. That person frowned and said, What's not good about it? It's not breaking the rules. As the organizer of this conference, do I not have the qualifications to recommend a young and promising genius pharmacist? Old ancestor Changle said with a cold face. Chapter 1247. Yes, of course. But do you really want to give him the recommendation? That person obviously looked down on Ling Xiao, but that was normal. Ling Xiao was the youngest among these people. One look and you could tell that he was the kind of person who didn't know how to do things properly. Who would dare to believe him? Can't I? Of course, of course. That person muttered. He looked at Ling Xiao and said, Kid, you were able to get the ancestor's recommendation. This is a special case among special cases. If you don't have confidence, you should take the initiative to give up. Don't embarrass the ancestor when the time comes. You don't believe in the patriarch? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Nonsense. I don't have confidence in you. The alchemists participating in this alchemy conference are generally stronger. So even if it's just a test before the competition, it won't be easy. You have to think carefully. It's fine if you embarrass yourself, but if you embarrass the patriarch, you'll be making an enemy out of the everlasting joy celestial island. That person shouted sternly. How should I address you? Ling Xiao suddenly asked. My surname is in. Oh, so it's senior in. It's not up to you to tell me who I'm embarrassing. Moreover, you're so presumptuous that I'm going to embarrass myself. If I get good results later, won't you embarrass yourself too? As a member of the everlasting joy celestial island, if you embarrass yourself, won't you be making an enemy out of the everlasting joy celestial island? Ling Xiao looked indifferently at the middle-aged man with the surname N. It seemed that every sect was short of such fools who relied on their powerful connections to intimidate others and judged others by their appearance. Humph, you better know what you're talking about. The man with the surname N snorted coldly. At this moment, he had already noticed the ashen-faced patriarch Everlasting Joy beside Ling Xiao. He knew that he had overstepped his boundaries. Therefore, he did not dare to continue. Don't worry. I, Ling Xiao, have always known what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. It's just that some people don't understand. Ling Xiao glanced at the man with the surname and indifferently. Then he turned to Patriarch Everlasting Joy and said, Patriarch, I'll go and prepare first. Yes. Patriarch Changle nodded and watched as Ling Xiao entered the testing grounds. Ancestor, this subordinate really didn't mean to be disrespectful to you just now. It's just that although this Ling Xiao saved your life, it's only because he knows a lot of things. You see, he doesn't even dare to refine the pill himself and has to let other alchemists refine it. I really don't believe that he has any ability. After Ling Xiao left, the man surnamed and hastily and respectfully bowed to Patriarch Changle. All right, I know what you mean. However, this old man is very optimistic about this kid. After all, this old man owes him a favor. Since he wants to participate in this test, this old man will naturally help him. The Everlasting Joy Patriarch waved his hand. Ancestor, you should know that because of the time you were poisoned, the second island master and the third island master wantonly bought people's hearts. Your prestige is no longer what it used to be. If this matter really causes your reputation to be damaged, the situation will be even worse. The man surnamed and reminded him. And Lien, this old man knows that you have good intentions. However, there's no need to continue discussing this matter today. The test is about to begin. Even if this old man regrets it now, it's too late. It's better to watch quietly. Hearing this, and Lien helplessly sighed. He was absolutely loyal to the Everlasting Joy Patriarch. Even when the Everlasting Joy Patriarch was poisoned, many people who were originally respectful to the Patriarch had chosen to side with the two Vice Island Masters. However, he still didn't change his stance. This was also the reason why he spoke sarcastically to Ling Xiao today. He didn't want Ling Xiao to ruin the Everlasting Joy Patriarch's plans. However, it was a pity that the Everlasting Joy Patriarch seemed to have full confidence in that kid. Even if he wanted to stop him, it was impossible. He could only endure it for now. After sighing, he walked over and loudly announced, "Everyone, stand in front of your own testing platform. There's a black box on the testing platform. This box can isolate internal energy, soul force, and vision. There are various medicinal ingredients inside. You can only choose from them by touch. Whichever medicinal ingredient you choose, that medicinal ingredient will be that medicinal ingredient. You can choose a maximum of 5 medicinal ingredients. Then, write down the detailed information of these 5 medicinal ingredients on a piece of paper and point out the pill formula that can be refined. Remember, there's more than one formula. Write down as many as you know. You don't have to personally refine it. Our committee will judge. Write an effective formula within a fixed time and you'll get 10 points. The more, the better. I believe you all understand. This is to test your familiarity with medicinal ingredients, as well as your understanding of pill and medicine formulas. The harder you work, the better your test results will be. The time limit is 30 minutes. After it's over, our committee will judge. Oh, right, there's a condition that I added at the last minute. If you can't even write an effective formula in the end, then you'll lose the qualifications to participate in this alchemy conference. If you're afraid, then give up as soon as possible." As he said this, and Lien intentionally glanced at Ling Xiao. Originally, this test didn't have such a punishment. However, he did it on purpose to scare Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao give up on the test. However, Ling Xiao stood there calmly. He was even smiling. This made Lien a little annoyed. "Ling Xiao, you're not going to give up? Whether it's experience or cultivation level, you are the weakest out of the 20 people here. If you give up now, you can save your face. Later, it'll be too late for you to cry." And Lien purposely raised his voice in front of everyone. "Hee, Seniorin, you have underestimated me time and time again. No matter how good my temper is, I'm not too happy about it. Since you are saying this in front of everyone, then I don't mind asking, if I pass the test, what will you do?" "Do what?" "That's a lot. For example, apologize to me in front of everyone here. For example, walk around the streets of the City of Sin and bark like a dog. Whatever you choose, I won't force you." Ling Xiao was not an aggressive person. However, the other party had caused him trouble time and time again. How could he tolerate this? "Fella, do you know who you are talking to?" And Lien is one of the examiners for this year's gathering. Dan Qing said coldly, "I don't need you to remind me. Of course, I know he is an examiner, but an examiner has no reason to pick on a participating alchemist." Ling Xiao didn't even look at Dan Qing. His eyes were glued to Lien, and Lien was having a hard time getting off the tiger. After a moment of silence, he clenched his teeth and said, "Fella, if you can write 3 or more effective recipes, I am willing to slap myself 3 times in front of everyone here." Slapping himself a few times wasn't a big deal. What was important was slapping himself. Ling Xiao wanted to break this guy's spirit. 3 effective recipes? Ling Xiao smiled and said, "Forget it. You're my senior, so I'll let you have your way. I'll write 4 effective prescriptions, and you can slap yourself 4 times. That way, it'll be more balanced." Chapter 1248. This kid is really conceited. All right, go ahead and give it a try. I want to see if you will cry in the end. And Lien was furious when he had reprimanded the disciples of Changle Immortal Island. No one had ever dared to speak to him like this. Everyone had been obedient. Who would have thought that Ling Xiao would be so unruly? All right, I promise you. What if you can't do it? And Lien asked, Simple. If I can't do it, not only will I not participate in the alchemy conference, but I will also hand over the imperial ruler's seal. Ling Xiao said nonchalantly, The imperial ruler's seal. Ling Xiao's words left everyone dumbfounded. How confident was this fellow to even dare to use the imperial ruler's seal as a wager? All right. And Lien shouted hurriedly, as if he was afraid that Ling Xiao would regret his decision. Actually, he was overthinking things. How could Ling Xiao regret his decision? Perhaps Ling Xiao was still unable to dominate in terms of martial arts. However, in terms of alchemy, if Ling Xiao claimed to be second, no one would be qualified to claim to be first. Even his master, a Yuan Venerate, would not dare claim to be as knowledgeable as him. Now, everyone, go to your own testing platform and start the test. The time has been set, so please pay attention. And Lien no longer looked at Ling Xiao and announced the start of the test. The testing platforms were random, so Ling Xiao chose the one closest to him and walked over. The rest of the people also chose their own testing platforms. No one dared to cause any trouble here. After all, the Changle Patriarch was standing there and watching. Brother Ling, you really shouldn't have offended Seniorin. What you did was a little too much. Ling Xiao had just entered the testing platform when he heard a voice coming from next door. When he turned around, he saw that it was Dan Qing. This fellow had just reprimanded him and was now lecturing him. This really made him unhappy. Too much? I didn't know that Brother Dan Qing could ignore someone after being ridiculed. It's a pity that I don't have a turtle shell. I don't know how to pretend to be a coward, nor do I need to. Ling Xiao said nonchalantly. After he finished speaking, he turned his head back and started to concentrate on selecting the medicinal herbs. He couldn't rely on his internal energy, soul force, or his eyes. He could only rely on his sense of touch to choose. He had to concentrate. Dan Qing was slightly angry. This was not the first time Ling Xiao ignored him. This made him, the number one young alchemist of the everlasting joy Immortal Island, a little unhappy. He always felt that he was incomparably noble, but when he came out, he stepped on a pile of cow dung, and his heart was extremely unhappy. What's wrong, Brother Dan Qing? Did that guy offend you? On the other side of Dan Qing was the little herb king, Ji Luiyu. Ji Luiyu seemed to be very interested in painting. It was possible that she had a crush on him. After all, Dan Qing had a handsome appearance, and his cultivation had reached the second Grotto Heaven realm. In addition, he was a top Huang level alchemist. He was definitely one of the best among the younger generation. It was normal for women to be interested in him. Sister Luoyu, don't you know that Ling Xiao? He saved the life of the everlasting Joy ancestor. Dan Qing said with a smile, I'm not interested in him. He's just a Huang level alchemist. Everyone says that he saved the everlasting Joy ancestor, but that's just a rumor. Moreover, even the ancestor himself suspected that someone was guiding him. It's not a big deal. He just read a few more books. Ji Luiyu really wasn't interested in Ling Xiao. Instead of discussing Ling Xiao, it was better to get closer to Dan Qing. After all, Dan Qing was much stronger than Ling Xiao in all aspects. Cultivation, alchemist grade, background, these were all things that Ling Xiao couldn't catch up to. That's true. At this moment, Dan Qing's vanity rose to the extreme, and he was very happy in his heart. Feng Ming and Piao Shui praised Ling Xiao in front of him, which made him angry until now. However, Ji Luoyu's words made him feel much better. Brother Dan Qing, the test has already begun. Let's also make a move, lest some pretentious people take advantage of us. Ji Luoyu said with a smile. I wish you all the best. Dan Qing nodded and looked at the black box in front of him. Your test questions this time are really good. Not only does it test the extent of the pharmacist's knowledge, but it also tests their practical experience. If they haven't refined pills before, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to write down the refining process of a pill in detail. The everlasting joy ancestor walked to Lien's side and gently patted his shoulder as he praised. Many thanks for the ancestor's praise. This is what we should do. Fortunately, I've touched every kind of medicinal ingredient and refined many pills. Otherwise, just the selection of medicinal ingredients today would be difficult. Ling Xiao found that there were many medicinal ingredients in the black box that were very similar in shape. This way, those who had an ambiguous understanding of the appearance of medicinal ingredients would have trouble identifying them. Tai Chi Ai. Ling Xiao opened his left eye and couldn't help but smile. His left eye could actually see the medicinal ingredients clearly through the black box. The 5 medicinal ingredients that he had chosen through touch were exactly the same as what he saw. This made him smile knowingly. Naturally, he was somewhat satisfied with his performance. After all, among those present, there was really no one who had the ability to see through things like him. However, the selection of medicinal ingredients was actually the most simple step. As long as these 21 people were true alchemists and not sneakily obtained their grades, they should be able to pass. The problem was the next pill formula. Not only did a pill formula have to write down the amount of medicinal ingredients needed, but it also had to describe the refining process in detail. The trouble was here. No matter which 5 medicinal ingredients and Lien put in the black box were combined, it was very difficult to refine the pills that currently existed. In other words, those who participated in the test had to create. It was very difficult to develop a pill formula on one's own and withstand the test. Many alchemists just learned step by step and absorbed mechanically. They only knew how to refine the pills in the books and didn't know how to invent and create their own. Thinking up to here, Ling Xiao involuntarily turned his head and glanced at Lien, thinking to himself that this guy was really ruthless enough. Of the people present, if they could come up with a pill recipe after racking their brains, it would already be very impressive. And Lien wanted to crush the pride of these outstanding geniuses and pour a bucket of cold water over their heads, so that they wouldn't dare to be complacent at the alchemy conference tomorrow. Damn it, no wonder this guy dared to make a bet with me to create more than 4 pill formulas. It's really not an ordinary level of difficulty. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and started racking his brains. At the same time, the rest of the testers also encountered the same difficult problem. However, their difficulty was definitely much lower than Ling Xiao's, because they only needed to create 1 pill formula and that would do. But even so, there was still no one who could complete this matter in a short time. Chapter 1249. After a long time, Ancestor Changle looked at the clock hanging on the wall and gently shook his head. And Lien, isn't this test a little too difficult? 20 minutes have already passed. Don't worry, Ancestor. Although it's a little difficult, it shouldn't be a problem for someone in the top 20 to come up with an answer. The reason why no one has finished the test yet is because they want to get a higher result. And Lien smiled. That's true. But in Lien, you should have a better understanding of these people's standards. Tell me, who will get the highest score this time? Ancestor Changle smiled and asked. Of course, he hoped that the alchemy conference could produce as many powerful pharmacists as possible. After all, this was the alchemy conference he presided over. Therefore, he was very concerned about the top 20. And Lien pondered for a moment and said, the one who will get first place will most likely be Danqing. In fact, Danqing's grade has already reached superior yellow grade. It's just that he hasn't participated in the test. Moreover, his practical ability is stronger than others. He was one of our core pharmacists in Changle Immortal Island. Oh, he's stronger than the Little Medicine King? Ancestor Changle smiled and said, although the little medicine king Jiluoyu isn't as old as Danqing, she has been learning from the medicine king Sunzai. She has also handled a lot of herbs. In addition, she's the deputy general manager of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company's headquarters in White Tiger Continent. If she doesn't have the ability, the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company wouldn't have given her such honor. Ancestor is right. That's why I hesitated just now. To be honest, in terms of creativity, the two of them should be on par. They're much stronger than those old bones in front of them. Perhaps they won't be able to get first place in the alchemy conference. But this test shouldn't be a big problem. And Lien thought and said, my judgment is similar to yours. Ancestor Changle nodded. Why didn't Ancestor mention Ling Xiao? And Lien asked doubtfully, didn't you recommend him? Although Ling Xiao is knowledgeable, he's still unconventional. His basic knowledge isn't solid. He should be able to pass the test, but it's unlikely for him to get first place. Ancestor Changle shook his head and said, I'm afraid he won't even pass the test. He's just an advanced yellow-level alchemist. Unless he's a genius, it's hard for him to have the ability to create his own pills. No matter how Lien looked at Ling Xiao, he didn't like that guy. It was probably because Ling Xiao didn't give him any face. You'll know when it ends. Patriarch Changle did not dwell on this issue. After all, no matter what he said, if Ling Xiao did not perform well, it would be meaningless. The next thing to do was to wait. He didn't have high expectations for Ling Xiao. At the very least, he could pass the test. As for his ranking, it didn't matter. Yes, someone stopped. Just as Patriarch Everlasting Joy and Lien were discussing the testers, a person walked out of one of the testing platforms. He held a piece of paper in his hand. Others definitely wouldn't know what was written on it. This required the judges, namely the Everlasting Joy Patriarch and Lien, to take a look. Is it Danqing? Isn't this child a little too anxious? There's still nearly 10 minutes left. Why is he so anxious? Patriarch Changle frowned and said, logically speaking, for this kind of test, it didn't matter if one finished at the last minute. As long as one could write enough pill formulas, it would be enough. For Danqing to come out so quickly, he was either too confident or too anxious. Patriarch, you might have misunderstood him. With his results, he might be able to secure first place. After all, it's just a test. There's no need to go all out. And Lien had a lot of faith in Danqing. Almost at the same time as Danqing, the little medicine king Jiluoyu also stopped. Jiluoyu looked at Danqing with a smile and said, Brother Danqing, you're really confident. You stopped so quickly. You must be certain of your victory. Likewise, Sister Luoyu, you finished the test almost at the same time as me. In the end, we can only see who has more answers and whose answers are more reliable. Danqing smiled. Although Luoyu respects Brother Danqing, I'm afraid Brother Danqing will lose to Luoyu on this point. Luoyu smiled and handed the paper in her hand to Lien. Then, Lien placed it on the table in front of Patriarch Changle. Patriarch Changle casually glanced at it and couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression. Danqing and Luoyu's answers were really beyond his expectations. However, in the end, to prove who was stronger, it still depended on whether the pill in the answer could be refined. If it couldn't be refined successfully, then it was meaningless. Go to the side and try. Only the pill that can be refined successfully counts. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And Lien said to the pharmacists on the judging panel, these pharmacists wouldn't participate in the alchemy conference, but they were all proficient in the art of alchemy. They were basically qualified to be judges. Of course, there would be 2 heavyweight judges in tomorrow's alchemy conference. One of them was the president of the Divine Phoenix Continent's Pharmacist Association branch. The other was the top pharmacist on Changle Celestial Island. It was said that he had already broken through the limit of yellow-level pharmacists. The last one was even more impressive, the White Tiger Continent's Medicine King Sunzai. After all, Tomorrow's alchemy conference was too important. It was really hard for ordinary judges to convince people. Time gradually passed. More and more examinees finished their tests and handed the papers in their hands to Lien. And Lien handed these papers to the judging pharmacists for them to refine. This was also the key to determining the score. The first to finish their tests were the 4 yellow-level super pharmacists and the 10 yellow-level peak-level pharmacists. The yellow-level advanced pharmacists were still inferior, so they didn't finish their tests. No one knew what Ling Xiao was doing. He also didn't finish his test. Looks like this Ling Xiao is only at this level. Although he's knowledgeable, he's still lacking in practical operations. He can't be compared to Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu. He can't be compared to the other yellow-level super and peak-level pharmacists. And Lien's face revealed a smug expression. He seemed to feel that his judgment of Ling Xiao was too accurate. Let's wait a little longer. It's not over yet. The Changel patriarch smiled. He wasn't in a hurry. He believed that with Ling Xiao's ability, passing the test wouldn't be a problem. It was just that his score couldn't be compared to the first 14 examinees. Dan Qing couldn't help but turn his head to look at Ling Xiao's testing platform. He saw that Ling Xiao was still thinking hard. He couldn't help but reveal a sarcastic smile. Some people are just good at talking. When it comes to the real test, they immediately show their true colors. Perhaps because he noticed that Feng Ming and Piao Shui were also in the audience and even revealed an anxious expression, he purposely spoke very loudly. Chapter 1250. Brother Dan Qing, he is only a yellow-level advanced medicine master. Don't you care too much about him? Ji Luoyu did not understand Dan Qing's reaction. Was it necessary to care so much about a yellow-level advanced medicine master who is not as good as himself? It's not that I care. He was too arrogant just now. He actually dared to not give face to Senior and Lien. Dan Qing explained. Oh, I see. Ji Luoyu did not ask any more questions. Everyone was still waiting. When it was the last minute, the remaining 6 yellow-level advanced medicine masters had finished their examination and handed their papers to Lien. At this moment, the only one who had not finished his examination was Ling Xiao. The smile on Lien's face grew wider and wider. In the crowd, Feng Ming and Piao Shui's brows furrowed even tighter. Could it be that Ling Xiao really couldn't make it? Brother Dan Qing, that person seems to be really weak. Even if he can't compare to the yellow-level super medicine masters and top medicine masters, he should be able to compete with those yellow-level advanced medicine masters. The difference is too great. Ji Luoyu seemed to be getting impatient from waiting. She did not like to stay here and wait for others to complete something. That was too boring. That's right. I've also warned that kid to learn from the seniors in a down-to-earth manner. Don't blow your beard and glare when you don't understand. In the end, little sister Luoyu, you've also seen it. This fellow is just good at talking. Dan Qing raised his voice even higher, as if he was afraid that others could not hear him. Feng Ming and Piao Shui became even more anxious. Dang, dang, dang. Finally, the magic treasure clock on the wall rang. This was the signal that the examination had ended. And Lien's face was like a flower that had completely bloomed. He smiled. He was originally worried that Ling Xiao would surprise him and display abilities that would surprise him. But now, it seemed that he had worried too much. He stood up and excitedly announced the end of the examination, and asked everyone to leave the examination platform. Of course, Ling Xiao was the only one left on the testing platform. His words were undoubtedly meant for Ling Xiao. Phoenix Cry Piao Shui sighed helplessly. She didn't expect Ling Xiao to fail such a test. Could it be that the outstanding young man in her heart was just an illusion? Ling Xiao walked out of the testing platform with a helpless and regretful expression on his face. Alas, it's a pity that time is too short. His sigh was heard by everyone. His words were also heard by everyone else. Hee, this person is really interesting. I think it's not that the time is too short, but that you're too weak. Others have already completed it, but you complain that the time is too short? Ji Luoyu said with a smile. She really didn't have a good impression of this Ling Xiao. He obviously couldn't do it, but he still said that the test time was too short. What kind of logic was that? Dan Qing also said in a strange tone, Sister Luoyu, don't say that. Even if he doesn't pass the test, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he has the support of the everlasting joy ancestor, so he should still be able to participate in the alchemy conference. Although these words seemed to be speaking for Ling Xiao, in fact, the sarcasm was even thicker. Ji Luoyu's words were just expressing her personal dislike. But Dan Qing was clearly targeting him. I should still be able to pass the test. Ling Xiao scratched his head and said, and Lien sneered and said, Take out your test paper. I've given you so much time. I don't know what you're going to do. But don't forget about our bet. I won't let it go so easily. Of course. Ling Xiao smiled and handed the test paper to Lien. And Lien didn't even look at it and handed it to the pharmacist judge next to him. Ancestor, it's not that I don't want to give Ling Xiao face, but this kid is really too arrogant. If I don't teach him a lesson, he really won't know what's good for him. After handing over the test paper, and Lien bowed and said to the everlasting joy ancestor, Just do it according to the rules. The everlasting joy ancestor only nodded slightly. No one knew what he was thinking at this time. On the other hand, Fengming Piaoshui, who was watching the show, was restless like an ant on a hot pan. In her opinion, Ling Xiao might really not be able to pass the test. It was even more impossible for him to win the bet with Lien. In that case, wouldn't he have to hand over the Imperial Jade Seal? With Ling Xiao's personality, would he really be so obedient? If he didn't hand it over, would they fight? Just as she was extremely anxious, and Lien was already preparing to announce the results of this test. The announcement of the results was naturally done according to the order of the papers handed in. The first paper came from Dan Qing, and Lien looked at the results and couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile. Very good. Dan Qing wrote 6 prescriptions, all of which can be refined into effective pills. He scored 60 points. Once this was said, everyone was a little surprised. One had to know that even those pharmacists who served as judges only had 4 or 5 prescriptions at best. Dan Qing's results were actually better than theirs. One had to know that Dan Qing had handed in his paper a long time in advance. Such a genius was really admirable. Dan Qing cupped his hands and said, This junior's talent is shallow and can only think of these 6 prescriptions. Although his words were modest, his face was filled with pride and confidence. One look and one could tell that he was extremely proud. To be able to do this, he was probably already at the level of a yellow-level super pharmacist. This Dan Qing's pharmacist ability was probably even higher. Dan Qing, you're too humble. Not to mention these people here. Even if you look at the entire Divine Phoenix continent and Heavenly Dragon continent, no one can compare to you in this test. And Lien exclaimed, Senior and Lien, it's best that you don't be too arbitrary. Otherwise, you'll be slapped in the face. Ling Xiao smiled lightly. Humph, just mind your own business. And Lien snorted coldly and ignored Ling Xiao. Instead, he took out Ji Luoyu's results. Could it be that Brother Ling thinks that little Pill King Ji Luoyu can beat me? Dan Qing glanced at Ling Xiao and asked, She's too inexperienced and can't beat you. At least, she can't win in this test. But I can win. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Ha ha ha, funny. Dan Qing laughed loudly, but he was extremely surprised. He was surprised that Ling Xiao could be so thick-skinned. He clearly couldn't even pass the test just now, and now he actually dared to say such shameless words. Just at this moment, and Lien read out little Pill King Ji Luoyu's results. Although Ji Luoyu wrote 6 prescriptions. Only 5 of them could really be refined into pills. The 6th prescription was a little whimsical. Lady Luoyu, if you can successfully refine this prescription on the spot, there won't be a problem. And Lien looked at Ji Luoyu and said, No need. Ji Luoyu shook her head. She was already satisfied with the 5 prescriptions. Anyway, it was just a test, and she didn't need to take out all her trump cards. Chapter 1251. Ji Luoyu 50 points. Among the results that were announced, there were 3 people with higher scores. They were also the 3 yellow-level super pharmacists, other than Ji Luoyu. Their scores were also 50, tied with Ji Luoyu, but they took a longer time, so they were ranked behind. As for the others, even the worst one had passed the assessment with a prescription. In short, the test results were not bad. As expected of the top 20 pharmacists, they did not let An Lien down. In the end, only Ling Zhao's results were not announced. At this time, An Lien also showed a somewhat mocking smile. Ling Zhao, you just said that Dan Qing's results were not the best, right? Then why don't you think about your own results? An Lien asked. It shouldn't be too bad. Ling Zhao said indifferently. Not too bad? You kid. Water must have entered your brain. You actually wrote 10 prescriptions, but none of them could be refined successfully. This is your result. 0 points. And Lien read it out on the spot without holding back. Silence. At this moment, the hall became as silent as death. Wow. A moment later, there was a roar of laughter. He wrote 10 prescriptions, but none of them could be used to refine pills. Didn't that mean that those prescriptions were simply written carelessly? Idiot, what is that guy trying to do? Can prescriptions be written carelessly? Can this kind of person be a pharmacist? Ji Luoyu could not help but show a sneer. She had been by Medicine King Sun Sa's side for a long time and knew that a pharmacist's responsibility was to save the dying and heal the injured, and to serve martial artists. People like Ling Zhao, who casually wrote prescriptions, were simply committing a heinous crime and disregarding human life. Senior An Lien, isn't your evaluation a little too arbitrary? Ling Zhao did not look at Ji Luoyu at all, but looked at An Lien and said very indifferently, Arbitrary. An Lien frowned and said, Do you think I'm deliberately targeting you? He really didn't target Ling Zhao. After all, Patriarch Everlasting Joy was here, so he didn't dare to do so. That's not it. I just feel that the standards of the pharmacists on the judging panel might be slightly lacking. Ling Zhao said indifferently, What do you mean by almost? And Lien's expression turned even colder. You dare to question the ability of the pharmacists. So what if I'm suspicious? My 10 prescriptions are written so clearly, yet I still can't refine any pills. This kind of ability, hee. Ling Zhao said with a faint smile. How are we supposed to refine the pills with the carelessly written recipe? One of the pharmacist judges was infuriated. A carelessly written prescription? What if I can refine it? Ling Zhao asked with a smile. If you can write it out, we will acknowledge your criticism. The apothecary judges reached a consensus. Okay, then maybe I'm going to refine pills on the spot for everyone to play with today. It seems that someone said that I don't know how to refine pills. Although the 10 prescriptions I wrote are all ungraded pills, the effect is not bad. I'll refine them for you to see. Ling Zhao nodded and said, Prepare the venue for him. And Lien said fiercely. He was about to explode from anger because of Ling Zhao. How could there be such an audacious guy who dared to question the pharmacists on the judging panel? He wanted to humiliate Ling Zhao in front of so many people. However, after 15 minutes, 10 pills full of energy were placed on the plate. At this moment, Patriarch Everlasting Joy felt his heart twitch. He had thought about how outstanding Ling Zhao was, but he never thought that Ling Zhao would be so outstanding. And Lien's expression was even more astonished. Ling Xiao actually managed to refine 10 pills in front of everyone. He only spent a quarter of an hour to refine 10 pills. How could he be so powerful? Dead silence. It was as silent as the wilderness in the middle of the night. There was no noise in the noisy hall at all. Everyone stared at the 10 round pills with their mouths agape. What was replaying in their minds was the process of Ling Xiao refining the pills. The judging pharmacists were almost thinking the same thing. To be able to use those few medicinal herbs to refine these 10 types of elixirs, this was simply a monstrous level of talent. What's more, Ling Xiao's alchemy skills were not worse than any of them here. Moreover, at the critical moment, he could always use his outstanding skills to make up for some defects in the prescriptions and successfully refine the pills. To put it bluntly, these 10 prescriptions could only be refined by those with good skills because it required precise flame controllability and proficiency in herbs. They were completely convinced. No wonder Ling Xiao said that their abilities were not good enough. They really were not good enough. Such a monstrous talent. Unless it was a pharmacist at the level of Medicine King Sanbu. Only then would he have the qualifications to be a judge. They were still too inexperienced. Feng Mingpiao Shui was so excited that she jumped up and muttered to herself, "I knew it! I knew he would be fine!" Perhaps it was her voice that eased the atmosphere in the hall. Many people cast complicated gazes at Ling Xiao. There was reverence in these gazes. There was also jealousy. There was also disbelief. At any rate, at this very moment, no one dared to look down on Ling Xiao in the slightest. The ability that Ling Xiao displayed was much stronger than them. Ji Luoyu was so angry that she almost cried. She said loudly, "Ling Xiao, you bastard. You're obviously so powerful, but you're pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. You're crazy." Ling Xiao looked at her indifferently and said, "Little Medicine King, I really don't have a masochistic habit, and I'm not pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger." "Then why did you hand in the paper so late and deliberately put on a regretful expression for everyone to see?" Ji Luoyu asked. "I handed in the paper late because I thought of more prescriptions, and I just wanted to use all the time reasonably. I didn't deliberately put on a regretful expression, but really regretful. If I had more time, I should be able to write 10 more prescriptions," Ling Xiao said indifferently. Although Ling Xiao was telling the truth, it still gave people a strong feeling of pretentiousness. Ji Luoyu was so angry that she didn't know what to say. When Ji Luoyu questioned Ling Xiao, Dan Qing's face was ashen. His hands were clenched tightly. If he could use all the time, then perhaps he could write for more prescriptions and reach the same level as Ling Xiao. But he was too proud. So he handed in the paper early, and he felt that no one could be better than him. But Ling Xiao used facts to hit him back, and he was slapped hard in the face. Dan Qing was extremely arrogant, and it was very difficult for him to accept this kind of thing. Of course, the one with the most interesting expression was still in Lien. His eyes were the most complicated. After various expressions slid across his face, he sighed heavily and said, "I lost, completely lost. Good boy. I didn't expect you to have such terrifying ability at such a young age. With your ability, you should at least be a top yellow-level pharmacist, or even a super yellow-level pharmacist." Chapter 1252. Perhaps. I've never said that I'm a high-grade, yellow-level apothecary. Unfortunately, back in the Sky Dragon continent, the Apothecary Association branch, there was only qualified to award me a high-grade, yellow-level badge. Ling Xiao really didn't want to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, but he really didn't have the chance to raise his apothecary rank. And Lien was shocked. He looked at Ling Xiao and said, "I've always been a man of my words. Since I've lost to you, I'll slap myself 4 times in front of everyone." "Wait a minute," Ling Xiao shouted. "I'm afraid 4 slaps aren't enough, right?" "What?" And Lien's face turned even uglier. Patriarch Changel was also a little unhappy. Ling Xiao was being a little unreasonable. All right, then I'll slap myself 10 times. And Lien gritted his teeth and said, Senior and Lien, you've misunderstood. As long as you admit your mistake, there's no need to slap yourself. I just wanted to let you know that you shouldn't look down on others. Since you've already admitted your mistake, I'm not an unreasonable person. Ling Xiao smiled and said, letting in Lien slap himself wouldn't make him feel any better. Instead, it would make this guy hate him to the core. There was no need for that at all. Ling Xiao wasn't an unreasonable person. He wouldn't really explode unless the other party went too far. And Lien, your tolerance is worse than a child's. Patriarch Changle smiled and said, Patriarch, you're right. This subordinate knows his mistake. And Lien thought of his previous attitude. He was determined to make a fool of Ling Xiao. In the end, Ling Xiao won and left him some face. Otherwise, if he were to slap himself in front of so many people today, he really wouldn't have the face to see others in the future. I believe I don't need to say much about the results of this test. Ling Xiao is first with 10 pill recipes, followed by Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu. All 21 people here have passed the test, which means that our previous list is quite reliable. Ling Xiao is a special case, and he is definitely not the only one. Today's test is only a test. Tomorrow's alchemy conference will be the real feast. I hope that you won't embarrass yourselves and this old man. Old Ancestor Changle smiled and said, but this old man will say the ugly words first. Those who aren't in the top 20 might not necessarily be as powerful as you. Ling Xiao is an exception, and he is definitely not the only one. Yes, those who could be ranked in the top 20 were all experts. They were also very confident. They would definitely not allow a second Ling Xiao to appear. They might have lost to Ling Xiao in today's test, but they definitely couldn't lose to him in tomorrow's alchemy conference, nor did they want to lose. All right, that's all for today. Go back and have a good rest. Tomorrow, show me your true abilities. Yes, the test takers bid farewell to Lien and the everlasting joy ancestor, and then left. They were actually clear that there would be great figures of the alchemist world descending tomorrow. Thus, some of their best tricks and trump cards would only be revealed tomorrow. Even if they lost to Ling Xiao in today's test, it was actually nothing. They could just win it back tomorrow. Brother Ling, wait a moment. Just as Ling Xiao was preparing to leave, Dan Qing stopped him. What? Does Brother Dan Qing have something to teach me? Ling Xiao asked calmly. I don't dare to say that I have something to teach you. I'm just surprised that Brother Ling is actually so powerful. Previously, I was the one who had eyes but failed to recognize Jade. Dan Qing said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. You must be joking. It's just some small tricks. I've only read a few more books and no more things. It's no big deal. Ling Xiao still had an indifferent expression as he said, Ha ha ha, Brother Ling is really modest. However, in my opinion, Brother Ling most likely knew the test's topic in advance. After all, the ancestor thinks so highly of you. There was a fire burning in Dan Qing's heart. It was the fire of jealousy. Even if the truth was right in front of his eyes, he still could not believe it. He could not admit that Ling Xiao was stronger than him. When he thought of how Ling Xiao was brought here by Ancestor Changle, he was sure that Ancestor Changle had informed Ling Xiao of the topic in advance. This way, Ling Xiao could do so well. This was the only explanation. He believed that Ancestor Changle would definitely not do this during the Alchemy Conference's main competition, nor could he do so. That was because the topic of the Alchemy Conference's main competition would only be raised by the 3 heavyweight alchemists when the competition began. Thus, it was impossible for him to know in advance. He thought that without Ancestor Changle's help, he would definitely be stronger than Ling Xiao. He could not possibly lose to a nobody like Ling Xiao. People were like this. He was originally a highly anticipated genius, and his results had always been number 1. But one day, he suddenly met someone who was much younger than him, but his results were much better than his. This would cause his mentality to be unbalanced. Hence, he would find many reasonable excuses to convince himself, to make himself feel better. This was a classic case of self-hypnosis. Ling Xiao smiled. Actually, he had seen many of such things. From the Ling family to Sky Cloud City and then to Yuehua School. Every single time a nobody like him obtained some good results, there would always be a few geniuses who would jump out to pick on his flaws. So towards this Dan Qing's words, he couldn't be bothered to explain. He only smiled and said, "As long as Brother Dan Qing is happy. Whatever you think, goodbye." The other party would definitely not accept his explanation now. On the contrary, he might even think that he was quibbling. He, Ling Xiao, was not in the mood to do such a tiring and thankless task. He might as well wait till the alchemy conference to use facts to shut this fellow up completely. There was a saying that was very good: if you can make a move, don't talk. If you want to slap someone's face, you should use facts to slap him. That would be even more vicious. With a light laugh, he turned around and left. Staring intently at Ling Xiao's disappearing figure, the fire in Dan Qing's heart burned even more vigorously. Just you wait, Ling Xiao. Not only will I become the champion of the alchemy conference, I will also make Fengming's Piao Shui marry me right in front of your eyes. However, at the next moment, he saw Fengming's Piao Shui chasing after Ling Xiao's figure. Ling Xiao, wait, I have something to tell you. Fengming's Piao Shui was like a beautiful butterfly as she flew over with an excited smile on her face. Dan Qing felt as though his heart was being squeezed by something painful. Damned Ling Xiao, the hatred of snatching my wife. I will definitely not let you off. He didn't marry Fengming's Piao Shui, and Ling Xiao also didn't chase after her. However, Dan Qing felt that Ling Xiao's hatred towards him belonged to snatching his wife. He didn't know where this anger and hatred came from. Dan Qing, do you hate him? In the hall, only Patriarch Chang'e and Dan Qing were left. Patriarch Chang'e suddenly appeared beside Dan Qing like a ghost and asked with a smile. Dan Qing wouldn't dare. Dan Qing shook his head. It's best not to hate him. He has no interest in Piao Shui, so there's no fundamental conflict between you and him. There's no benefit in provoking him. You're on your own now. Patriarch Chang'e shook his head. He was worried about Dan Qing when he recalled Ling Xiao's domineering attitude during the battle on the Long Street. Would anyone who offended Ling Xiao have a good ending? Chapter 1253. What Fengming Piao Shui said when she caught up with Ling Xiao was actually an invitation. Medicine King Sun Sa had arrived at the city of Sin and wanted to host a banquet at his residence. He invited Elder Chang'e and Fengming Piao Shui. The strange thing was that Ling Xiao was also invited. Fengming Piao Shui was here to deliver the invitation to Ling Xiao. Medicine King Sun Sa's invitation. Of course, I won't refuse. Looking at the jade green invitation card, Ling Xiao was actually a little excited. Medicine King Sun Sa was the most outstanding pharmacist on the White Tiger continent. Such a person actually invited him. No matter what the reason was, he had to attend. Maybe he could learn some things about the White Tiger continent from Sun Sa. That's great. I was afraid that you wouldn't want to go. But Ling Xiao, you have to be careful. Dan Qing and little Medicine King Jiluyu will definitely attend this banquet. Those two don't have a good impression of you. Phoenix Cry Piao Shui reminded him. Also, I'm afraid that this banquet might have something to do with the Imperial Jade Seal that you're holding. If possible, bring Her Highness Moon Maiden along. If she goes, you'll naturally be safe. There's no need. Ling Xiao shook his head. The Moon Maiden wasn't his only trump card. He was afraid that the other party would set a trap for the Moon Maiden. Therefore, the Moon Maiden definitely couldn't go. If he went alone, it would be easier for him to escape. Anyway, I'm reminding you, be careful when you come at night. Feng Mingpiao Shui understood Ling Xiao's temper, so she didn't insist. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would probably be angry. When that time came, even she would be blamed. Thank you. I will be careful. Ling Xiao looked at Feng Mingpiao Shui. It wasn't that he didn't know that this woman was interested in him. It was just that he wasn't a promiscuous person. He didn't want to hurt Feng Mingpiao Shui, so he didn't plan to get too close to her. However, words of thanks still had to be said. After returning to Yunya's residence, Ling Xiao found out that Princess Yunya had also accepted the invitation. It just so happened that when night fell, the two of them went out together and headed towards the residence of Medicine King Sun Sa. This time, Medicine King Sun came to the city of Sin and directly stayed on a ship by the sea. That ship had sailed over from the White Tiger continent and possessed even more advanced puppet and mechanism technology. It was even more exquisite than the ones from the Sky Dragon continent and the Divine Phoenix continent. Even though it was parked on the sea, it was still very comfortable. To put it bluntly, this guy just looked down on those facilities and felt that they had no class. Looking at the brightly lit giant ship, Ling Xiao was truly a little shocked. However, even if it was the White Tiger continent's mechanical arts, compared to the giant steel wheels in his memory or even the machines that could fly, there was still a gap. He didn't know which world the memories he had obtained came from, but that place could really be said to be a place where mechanical puppet techniques were extremely developed. It was just that people didn't seem to know how to cultivate. Ling Xiao and Princess Yunya boarded the ship on foot. Since they had an invitation, they were naturally not stopped. The banquet seemed to be taking place on the deck of the ship. There were many familiar faces in the crowd. Of course, there were also many strangers. The moment Ling Xiao entered the ship, countless pairs of eyes were cast towards him. Among them, there were naturally those with ill intentions, and there were also those who were clearly surprised. Seeing Ling Xiao, perhaps many people would have some doubts in their hearts. In the city of Sin, Ling Xiao wasn't as famous as he was in the Sky Dragon continent. Many people wouldn't give him face. Even if he destroyed the Black Python clan, angered Jade Wave Island, and crippled the One-Eyed Pirates, it was still the same, because many people didn't believe that he did it at all. In those people's eyes, Ling Xiao's age was actually the original Sin. You're so young. How could you do such amazing things? Wasn't that just bragging? In a corner of the ship, Corp's grandma, Zhang Tianda, and Representative Yan were also present. Perhaps it was because many important people came to the city of Sin and they felt that the Moon Lady wouldn't dare to mess around. So they all showed up. Representative Yan, weren't you the one who invited Divine Phoenix Empire's Inferno General, Xiao Zhan, today? Where is he? Zhang Tianda saw Ling Xiao and then asked in a low voice, Don't forget, this time we're relying on this Xiao Zhan to take revenge. Inferno General Xiao Zhan, one of the Divine Phoenix Empire's 13 Divine Generals, a Grotto Heaven realm martial artist. Not only was he powerful, he was also wild and arrogant. His position in the Divine Phoenix Empire wasn't low. If the 10 Great Phoenix Sons were the future of the Divine Phoenix Empire, then the 13 Divine Generals were the backbone of the Divine Phoenix Empire. Northern Region King Jining was one of the 13 Divine Generals, and he was ranked near the top. Although this Xiao Zhan was ranked near the bottom, he was a capable general of Crown Prince Jining. Among the 13 Divine Generals, he was doing much better than Northern Region King Jining. Haha, don't worry, Xiao Zhan will definitely come. That guy's personality is very similar to Crown Prince Phoenix Mountain. He is overbearing and arrogant. When he meets someone he doesn't like, he will kill without hesitation. He is very powerful with the support of the Ice Phoenix clan. Representative Yan said with a smile, He will definitely come today because Princess Yunya is here. That guy fell in love with Princess Yunya at first sight. Moreover, he said in front of many people that whoever dares to snatch Yunya from him, he will destroy them. No wonder, Ling Xiao is in trouble this time. He is so close to Yunya, Xiao Zhan will definitely not let him go. Zhang, Tianda chuckled. I don't care what grudges there are between this Xiao Zhan and Ling Xiao. In short, today, this old woman must see Ling Xiao's blood splatter on the spot. After that Xiao Zhan and Ling Xiao fight, we can act in secret. Corpse Granny smiled sinisterly. Since her debut, she had never suffered such a big loss, and all of this was thanks to Ling Xiao. Although she was afraid of the Moon Lady, she couldn't let go of her revenge on Ling Xiao because of fear. When the time comes, we will have to trouble you, Corpse Granny. In terms of sneak attacks and plotting, you are a first-class expert. Representative Yen said with a smile. Don't worry, leave it to me. Corpse Granny sneered again and again, as if she had already seen Ling Xiao's corpse on the spot. In another place, Dan Qing, Ji Luoyu, and the others were also sitting there. They never lacked fans around them. After all, the test that day was only an internal test, and the results would not be made public. Therefore, except for those who participated in the test at that time, no one else knew that they had lost to Ling Xiao. Those who participated in the test naturally wouldn't speak carelessly. They didn't dare to speak carelessly. Senior brother Danqing, I thought that Ling Xiao had 3 heads and 6 arms. Why would Sister Piao Shui have a soft spot for him? It's simply annoying. Many people from the Everlasting Joy, Celestial Island, came to cheer for Danqing. One of them observed Ling Xiao for a while and then said with some disdain, He doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms, but he has a glib tongue. That mouth can not only deceive ignorant women, but also our ancestor. Danqing said coldly. Chapter 1254. I heard about this. I don't know where that guy found a way to cure the poison in the Changel ancestor's body, but he immediately gained the ancestor's trust. It's really hard to accept. The junior brother of the Changel, Celestial Island, said again. He has an expert to guide him. He's different from us. Didn't you see that Princess Yunya of the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company was talking and laughing with him? He probably got the detoxification method from the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company. Another person said, That's really possible. Everyone nodded and said, Many people were like this. If they couldn't do something, they would think that others couldn't do it. If others did it, then they must have done it through abnormal means. It was cheating. Speaking of Princess Yunya, I really don't understand why she has a soft spot for that guy. It's really enviable. Princess Yunya had always been a goddess in the hearts of many young people. She was enchanting, charming, gorgeous, and beautiful. In addition, she was a standard rich woman. She was fair, rich, and beautiful in the true sense. There were countless people who wanted to be the man by her side. The one who spoke had once tried to pursue Yunya, but he was mercilessly ignored by Yunya. It would be good to reject him. It would be too hurtful to ignore him directly. At this time, Danqing suddenly smiled and said, I heard that Xiao Zhan, the General of Fire of the Divine Phoenix Empire, is also interested in Princess Yunya. He even said it in public. I wonder what he will do after he comes today. He was also invited? Ji Luoyu asked with interest. That's right, Sister Luoyu. That's why I said that there will be a good show tonight. It will definitely be better than those singers. Danqing smiled. In fact, he hoped that Ling Xiao would be killed by Xiao Zhan. In this way, no one would compete with him for the fluttering snow of the Phoenix Cry. Even at the alchemy conference, he would have one less strong opponent. Hee, it sounds quite interesting. I don't like this kind of noisy occasion. But today, I feel that it's quite interesting. A look of excitement appeared on Ji Luoyu's face. The banquet had not yet started, and Sun Sa had not yet appeared. Several important figures should still be discussing something. Therefore, the guests who weren't very important now were chatting and discussing things in groups of 3 or 5. Suddenly, a scarlet light flashed in the sky. Then an explosion sounded from the giant wheel. The flames surged and a person appeared. This person was dressed in red and looked rather heroic. His brows were furrowed, and he looked very dignified. Standing there, he looked disdainfully at the few martial artists on the ground who were scared out of their wits. He spat out a word from his mouth. Trash! That's right. Someone who would be scared by him must be a piece of trash. He lightly patted the dust off his body and then looked around like a falcon looking for prey. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on a certain spot. At first, his expression was one of excitement, but after a moment his eyes were filled with brutality and hatred. In that place, Ling Xiao and Princess Yunya were sitting face to face. No one knew what they were talking about, but they were laughing very happily. Suddenly, Ling Xiao felt a strong murderous aura coming towards him, and the person who came was not weak, but he didn't make any reaction. He still held the wine cup in his hand and chatted with Princess Yunya. A strong cyclone like a storm came towards him. Ling Xiao just moved his feet slightly, and then steadily poured the wine in the cup into his mouth. A figure flew past in front of him, a figure that was as furious as flames. Boom! That figure couldn't stop his momentum, and his palm landed on the deck nearby. He spun in a circle and steadied himself. Then he looked at Ling Xiao fiercely. At this time, Ling Xiao slowly stood up, and his eyes revealed a bit of cold, murderous intent. This person didn't say a word and came to kill him. This made him very unhappy. No matter who the other party was, he must pay the price today. The sudden fight here attracted the attention of everyone on the deck. When everyone saw the troublemaker and the troublemaker, many people showed expressions of schadenfreude. The troublemaker was one of the 13 Divine Phoenix Empires Inferno General Xiaozhan. The one who was looking for trouble was the recently famous Celestial Emperor Ling Xiao of the Celestial Empire. Interesting that Ling Xiao could actually dodge Xiaozhan's sneak attack. This battle might be much more exciting than imagined. Ji Luoyu shook the wine cup in his hand and showed a very satisfied smile. How is that a sneak attack? Xiaozhan is an idiot. The murderous aura was so strong when he attacked. Any martial artist with a little sensing ability could dodge it. Dan Qing cursed in a bad mood. Xiaozhan couldn't kill Ling Xiao in one strike, which made him a little angry. He felt that Xiaozhan was a little unreasonable. Haha, interesting. The Inferno General Xiaozhan fought against the Celestial Emperor Ling Xiao. How good is this Celestial Emperor? I guess we can see the result tonight. The disciples of Everlasting Joy Immortal Island were gloating. Facing Xiaozhan, it's already pretty good that Ling Xiao can keep his life. Don't forget that Xiaozhan is a Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist. Moreover, he's a second Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist. Without the help of others, it's impossible for Ling Xiao to win. But I heard that Ling Xiao once killed 4 first Grotto Heaven Realm martial artists alone in the battle on the Long Street, and even injured a 3rd Grotto Heaven Realm martial artist? Rumors, if you believe them, then you're stupid. Ling Xiao could have provoked any woman, but he had to provoke Princess Yunya. How could Xiaozhan let him have it easy? Even if he doesn't die, his cultivation will probably be crippled. Dan Qing shook his head. He didn't believe the rumors about Ling Xiao killing 4 first Grotto Heaven Realm martial artists at all. He felt that it was a little ridiculous. Xiaozhan's cultivation was the same as his. He believed that Xiaozhan could definitely teach Ling Xiao a lesson. He couldn't let this guy be too arrogant. Ling Xiao looked coldly at the red-robed, middle-aged man opposite him. In his impression, this guy should be one of the 13 divine generals of the Divine Phoenix Empire, General Lai Hua Xiaozhan. He had never seen this person before, but he had heard Feng Yanran mention him. To put it nicely, he was a fierce general. To put it bluntly, he was rude and overbearing, very much like Chu Fengming Qishan. If he didn't like someone, he would directly attack without any nonsense. I was wondering who it was. So it's a mad dog. Has your brain been roasted by fire? Ling Zhao's words weren't pleasant to hear, because the other party's attack was too ruthless. If he hadn't noticed the attack in advance, and if his movement technique wasn't good enough, any other person of the same age would have been killed on the spot by that punch. He knew that the other party was General Laihua, but he definitely wouldn't be polite to someone who attacked him ruthlessly. At this moment, his heart was filled with killing intent. It was just that the other party's strength was extraordinary, so he didn't act rashly. Otherwise, this battle would have already begun without any suspense. Chapter 1255. Xiao Zhan glanced at Ling Xiao indifferently and scolded. "Damn it, you must be Ling Xiao. When I was in the Imperial City, I wasn't there, so I let you be arrogant. What? Now you want to steal my woman? Yun, you beside you is my woman. If you dare to flirt with her, I'll kill you." "Princess Yunya, do you know him?" Ling Xiao asked indifferently. Yunya shook her head and said, "He's just a madman." Of course. She knew that General Laihua Xiao Zhan wanted to pursue her, but she had never agreed. She had never even had a meal with this Xiao Zhan. This Xiao Zhan was a complete madman. He wanted to force himself on the woman he had set his eyes on. "Are you okay?" Yunya asked with some worry. "This kind of trash can't hurt me. If you really have nothing to do with him, then I won't be merciful. This guy is ruthless enough. He actually wants my life." Although Ling Xiao's voice was very soft and his tone was not that fierce, Princess Yunya felt a chill down her spine when she heard it. In the battle on the long street, Princess Yunya had truly seen Ling Xiao's decisiveness in killing. This guy would never let go of the person he wanted to kill. He indeed has nothing to do with me, but he has a close relationship with the Crown Prince, Phoenix Kraichishan. After all, you are still the Dragon King of the Divine Phoenix Empire. I'm afraid it's not good to fall out with him like this, right? After all, Princess Yunya was a businesswoman. She also had business dealings with Phoenix Kraichishan. So if today's matter could be resolved peacefully, it would naturally be best. Before Ling Xiao could speak, Xiao Zhan spoke again. "Ling Xiao, I'm asking you a question. Don't talk nonsense. What is your relationship with Yunya?" Xiao Zhan's voice was full of rage. His fighting spirit gushed out like a raging fire, burning the surrounding sky red. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and said, "Princess Yunya, it's not that I want to kill him. He is courting death." He took a step forward, and his fighting spirit rose rapidly. At that moment, he seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. "You're asking about my relationship with Princess Yunya? I can tell you right now that she's my woman. What do you think?" Ling Xiao's words were naturally just to provoke Xiao Zhan, because today he didn't intend to hold back. Since the other party wanted to kill him, then he wouldn't hold back. "Brat, you're courting death." When Xiao Zhan heard Ling Xiao's words, it was obvious that the anger on his face was even greater. The blazing flames behind him actually rose to a height of more than 10 meters. It looked really terrifying. His martial soul was the raging inferno martial soul, which was a type of fire martial soul. The reason why he was called the General of Raging Inferno was because of this martial soul. Attach! In that instant, the flames suddenly disappeared, and then a strange situation occurred. Xiao Zhan was actually wrapped up by the crimson flames, forming a thick layer of flame battle armor. Ling Xiao had done this before, but it was obviously not as solid as Xiao Zhan's flaming battlesuit. He could even feel that the flame had integrated into Xiao Zhan's internal organs and even his blood. This was the true meaning of martial soul possession. Although there were many ways to fight with martial souls, and attaching was just one of them, martialists who could be possessed by martial souls all possessed extremely strong combat strength. It just so happened that Xiao Zhan was such a martialist. This fellow's rude and tyrannical temper had been cultivated on the battlefield. Ling Xiao was very calm as he looked at Xiao Zhan. His opponent was a martialist at the Second Paradise Realm. If he wanted to defeat him, he had two options. One was to borrow the power of the butterfly lady, a yuan venerate, or a human monarch. The other option was to use a secret spirit technique, just like when he had dealt with the 4 freaks of the City of Sin. However, the repercussions of the latter option were too severe. If he used it today, he wouldn't be able to participate in the alchemy conference tomorrow. He didn't intend to use the former option immediately. After all, he wanted to see how far he could go in a fight with Xiao Zhan based on his own strength. In a sense, Ling Xiao was also a battle maniac. He yearned to fight with experts. Only then would he be able to gain more experience. However, his actions were seen as pretentious and jealous by many people. Ling Xiao definitely wants to show off in front of Princess Yunya. However, I'm afraid that he will make a fool of himself if he fights with Xiao Zhan. Dan Qing sneered and said he could have called for help directly. As long as the Medicine King, Sun Sa, and the others appear, Xiao Zhan wouldn't dare to act recklessly even if he had 100 guts. This guy isn't stupid, he's just a little carried away. After all, he is in front of a beauty. If he cowers, he won't be able to gain the favor of a beauty in the future. Even if he loses, he will still be considered brave. Ji Luoyu smiled. Unfortunately, Ling Xiao miscalculated Xiao Zhan's temper. Once Xiao Zhan makes a move, he will really beat someone to death. Who cares? We're just here to watch the show anyway. Whether Ling Xiao is a snake or a dragon will soon be revealed. There were many people who didn't mind watching the show. On the other side, Corpse Granny closed her eyes and a black shadow flew out from her body. It was faintly discernible and gradually approached Ling Xiao. If someone knew Corpse Granny, they would know that this was Corpse Granny's unique assassination skill, Shadow Demon. This Shadow Demon was an undead spirit that she had raised in her body. Although it couldn't attack the enemy's body, it could affect the enemy's soul. It could be imagined that when Ling Xiao and Xiao Zhan were in the middle of a battle, their souls would suddenly be affected and they would lose the initiative to fight. What would the result be in the end? On the other side, the battle had already begun. In front of everyone, Ling Xiao and Xiao Zhan's fighting spirit collided in the air and actually erupted with substantial destructive power. Then, the two suddenly rushed out. One was holding a sword, and the other was waving the Fire Divine Fist. They hit each other's vital points in the air. This was a real battle to the death. Although they didn't say anything, both of them were going in the direction of a battle to the death. Get lost! Xiao Zhan punched out and hit the tip of Ling Xiao's sword. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded in the air. On one side was a glaring light, and on the other side was a blazing flame. The two of them actually couldn't gain any advantage. However, the collision was only a single exchange. Xiao Zhan had rich combat experience, and his cultivation was higher than Ling Xiao's. After his right hand blocked the tip of Ling Xiao's sword, his left hand chopped toward Ling Xiao's head. This move was simply too powerful. If it really hit Ling Xiao, then Ling Xiao's head would really explode. However, although Ling Xiao's cultivation wasn't as good as his opponent's, and his overall strength wasn't as good as his opponent's, his movement technique was stronger than Xiao Zhan's. He used the shadow step and easily avoided Xiao Zhan's attack. However, the strong wind brought about by the opponent's hand chop scraped his skin and caused his clothes to tear. Chapter 1256. Sure enough, a good opponent. Although he was at a disadvantage, Ling Xiao was not afraid. Instead, he revealed an excited expression. He was very happy about this battle. As he spoke, his movements did not stop. After dodging Xiao Zhan's attack, Ling Xiao casually released a Crimson Sun All. Although the glaring Crimson Sun All was very easy to discover, its destructive power far surpassed the Shadow All. Moreover, the distance was so close. He believed that it would probably be somewhat difficult for Xiao Zhan to avoid it. Good boy, a little interesting. Xiao Zhan revealed a hint of surprise, but immediately this surprise quickly turned into excitement and fanaticism. This guy was also a battle maniac. This was somewhat similar to Ling Xiao. Unable to dodge Ling Xiao's attack, Xiao Zhan simply did not dodge. At the place where the Crimson Sun all attacked, the originally burning flames suddenly solidified. It actually looked like magma that had just solidified. Thick and blazing. Bang! The Crimson Sun all hit that lump of solid flames, emitting a dull explosion sound, and immediately disappeared. However, this sudden attack still made Xiao Zhan suffer a little hidden loss. His body actually fell back half a step. Although it was only half step, he was a powerhouse of the second Grotto Heaven realm. Facing a mere 10 directions heaven martial artist, he actually had to retreat. This was simply an extraordinary shame and humiliation. In an instant, retreating became an attack again. Ling Xiao's attack was still unable to cause any harm to him in the end. It could not be helped. The cultivation gap was too great. Xiao Zhan, who shot out like a spring, actually condensed a flaming long spear in his hands, piercing toward Ling Xiao's head. This kind of reaction, Ling Xiao was not surprised. Therefore, he had long made ample preparations. If Xiao Zhan did not even have this bit of ability, he would not have bothered to fight this battle with the other party. He would have long used other forces to destroy this guy. The flaming long spear stabbed over. Ling Xiao's shadow sword stabbed out at the same time. On the shadow sword, the cone-shaped object condensed from light and darkness was full of explosive power. After that, the two collided again. Boom! The violent chi collided and then burst out, shaking many tables and chairs in the surrounding area. Beneath their feet, tiny cracks actually appeared. One had to know that this giant ship was built using the most advanced mechanical puppet technology on the White Tiger continent. The hardness of the deck was able to withstand an all-out attack from a Grotto Heaven realm martial artist. From this, it could be seen that although the attacks of the two did not appear to be flashy, they were filled with power. Both of them were ruthless moves that wanted to kill the other. This collision caused Ling Xiao to let out a muffled groan, and his figure rapidly retreated. If it were someone else, they would probably really make a fool of themselves. However, Ling Xiao actually used his outstanding body movement to resist the impact. After a few beautiful backflips in the air, he landed steadily on the side of the ship. Xiao Zhan was repelled again. Although he only took one step back, it made this confident General Lai Hua's state of mind completely lose balance. He was the one who initiated the fight, but he couldn't defeat Ling Xiao quickly. This was too shameful. Most importantly, he did it in front of so many people, in front of Princess Yunya. In the blink of an eye, the two had already exchanged several moves. It seemed to be a quick duel, but there was a hidden killing intent. No matter who made the slightest mistake, they might be ruthlessly beaten by the other. Many people did not expect such a situation. In their opinion, this should be the battle where Ling Xiao revealed his true colors. It should be the battle where General Lai Hua violently beat up the Celestial Emperor. However, at this time, they looked at Ling Xiao in surprise. This young pharmacist who was good at alchemy, the youngest founding emperor of the mystic world, and this young martial artist whose cultivation was only at the 10 directions heaven realm, actually did not lose to the dignified General Lai Hua in terms of combat experience. Even in some changes, he was even better than General Lai Hua. It was these changes that allowed Ling Xiao to not be defeated in the lightning-like collision. Among the people at the banquet today, the one with the lowest cultivation was probably Ling Xiao. This was because most of the people who could be invited by the Medicine King Sun Sa were martial artists above the Grotto Heaven realm, including the disciples of the Changel Celestial Island. These people could all see the thrill and excitement of the battle just now. Ling Xiao was actually able to resolve Xiao Zhan's attacks one by one, and even counterattack himself. This was really rare. After all, that General Lai Hua Xiao Zhan was one of the 13 divine generals of the Divine Phoenix Empire. Looking at the entire Divine Phoenix continent, he was also absolutely a powerhouse. In addition, killing enemies on the battlefield could be said to be rich in experience. If not for him being brave and valiant enough, Phoenix Kraichishan would not have listed him as one of the 13 divine generals. When this guy was enraged, even if it was a martial artist whose cultivation was stronger than his, he also dared to beat them up. But facing Ling Xiao, he actually did not occupy too much of an advantage. Of course, because they were fighting on the ship, General Lai Hua Xiaozhan did not dare to use his full strength, no matter how crude he was. Otherwise, if he destroyed this enormous ship, he was afraid that Medicine King Sun Sa would blame him, and that would be troublesome. He was crude and overbearing, but he was not stupid. But the problem was, did Ling Xiao use his full strength? Many people had heard that Ling Xiao could control enormous skeletons. But today, it was very clear that Ling Xiao did not do so. Both of them did not use their full strength, but Xiao Zhan's cultivation was higher after all, so he could not gain the upper hand. No wonder so many people were surprised. Could it be that the rumors outside are true? Ling Xiao's fighting strength is really not weak. Ji Liu looked at Ling Xiao with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Although she did not understand Xiao Zhan very well, her eyesight was extremely brilliant. Other than not using the inner strength of the second Grotto Heaven realm, Xiao Zhan had basically used all of his skills and experience, but he was still unable to beat up Ling Xiao. On the contrary, it seemed that they were evenly matched. This Ling Xiao might be much more powerful than she had imagined. Dan Qing's expression was not very good. He had been hoping that Ling Xiao would be beaten up, and he had even said some mocking words before, saying that Ling Xiao and Xiao Zhan were courting death. This kind of situation at present, he was more embarrassed. Hearing Ji Liu's praise of Ling Xiao, the anger in his heart flared up even more, and he said coldly, "It's still the environment here that bound the hands and feet of General Blazing Fire Xiao Zhan. Otherwise, this battle, Ling Xiao would have lost long ago." That being said, Big Brother Dan Qing, don't forget that Ling Xiao is only at the early stage of 10 Directions Heaven. Facing Xiao Zhan with this cultivation, even if the opponent did not use his full strength, it's still something to be proud of. Although Ji Liu had a grudge against Ling Xiao in her heart, she did not completely hate him. Her likes and dislikes were very obvious. That was, she liked the strong and capable and despised the weak and incapable. Although this was really somewhat utilitarian, it was very practical. After all, as Medicine King Sun Sa's disciple, she had seen too many experts. If it was not for some special people, she would not even bother to take a look at them. TSK. When Dan Qing heard this, he was even more displeased in his heart, but he could not go against Ji Liu. After all, offending Medicine King Sun Sa had no benefits at all. Moreover, he had also studied at Sun Sa's place for a period of time and could be considered half a disciple. Chapter 1257. Ling Xiao, you don't have to give me face. I've already said that it has nothing to do with him. Yun, you checked Ling Xiao's condition and knew that Ling Xiao was fine. Then she said angrily, Yunya, you think too highly of me. He's a martial artist at the second Grotto Heaven realm. How can I be his opponent? Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. In all fairness, if he didn't rely on external forces, he really wouldn't be able to last long against Xiao Zhan. The gap in cultivation was difficult to make up for with experience and skill. Unless he also advanced to the Grotto Heaven realm, then it would be simple. After the collision, just now his sword-wielding hand was still trembling slightly, and waves of pain kept coming from his arm. Although he wasn't injured, it was obvious that he was at a disadvantage. However, he felt that Xiao Zhan definitely wouldn't feel good either. In the attack of the light and shadow divine the two energies of heat and cold worked at the same time. It was impossible for a brute like Xiao Zhan to think of a way to deal with it in a moment. He would definitely feel uncomfortable. Ling Xiao was right. Although Xiao Zhan wasn't injured, his arms were sometimes cold and sometimes hot. That kind of feeling was really a little uncomfortable. The most terrifying thing was that he seemed to feel that he was poisoned. Ling Zhao's light and shadow divine all contained white blood poison. In any case, it was a desperate fight, so he didn't show any mercy. The white blood poison was his secret weapon now. It would be a waste if he didn't use it. Xiao Zhan tried to use his internal force to force the poison out of his body, but a moment later, his face turned ugly. This poison was extraordinary. Although only a little bit had entered his body, not only was he unable to force it out, but it was also constantly eroding his blood. Kid, you actually used poison. You're really shameless. Xiao Zhan scolded Ling Xiao loudly. At this time, he was like a tiger who wanted to pounce on a hedgehog, but found that not only did he not eat the hedgehog, but his claws and mouth were also full of thorns. It was indescribable how aggrieved he was. The dignified general of fire was actually plotted against by a little guy. It was a blunder. Shameless. Ling Xiao said disdainfully, "You sneak attacked me with the cultivation of the second Grotto Heaven realm. Isn't that called shameless? Am I shameless for using poison? Don't forget that I'm an apothecary. If I don't guard against poison when fighting with an apothecary, that's called stupid. I really don't know how you got the title of General of Fire. You're just a piece of trash." In terms of bickering, Ling Xiao definitely wouldn't lose to Xiao Zhan. Moreover, he had his reasons for today's matter. The other party used his strength to bully the weak and even launched a sneak attack. So what if he used poison? It was normal for apothecaries to use poison in battle. Hand over the antidote now, or I'll kill you. Perhaps Xiao Zhan was really anxious. At this moment, he was no longer prepared to hold back. An abundant amount of origin energy erupted from his domain. His battle intent surged, and the flames were 2 to 3 times larger than before. That murderous aura made the faces of many nearby warriors turn ugly. They all fled from this lunatic. Battle intent rumbled, and killing intent filled the sky. At this moment, Xiao Zhan was like a fiery general dealing with the enemy on the battlefield. There wasn't the slightest bit of pity in his eyes. Boom! Ling Xiao did not back down. His aura skyrocketed in an instant. Through the battle with Xiao Zhan, he discovered that the potential in his body was constantly awakening. This process was really excellent. Sword intent broke through the clouds, illuminating the night into day. His killing intent was not the slightest bit weaker than Xiao Zhan's. His sword intent was swift and fierce until it could pierce the firmament. Those two guys are going to get serious. Are they planning to tear down the giant ship? Ji Luoyu's expression changed slightly. She was very surprised that Ling Xiao could still remain calm under Xiao Zhan's powerful aura and wholeheartedly seek to fight. Now, she seemed to understand a little why this Ling Xiao could be the celestial emperor of the Celestial Empire, and why this Ling Xiao would have so many people supporting him. This person was absolutely not as simple as he appeared on the surface. He was very strong, and also very ruthless. Xiao Zhan, why aren't you stopping? This isn't a place for you to behave atrociously. Ji Luoyu stood up helplessly. The current her had no choice but to stop it. This banquet was prepared by her master, the Medicine King's son saw. If it was ruined because of these two guys, then she would have no face. However, how could Xiao Zhan, who was currently in a fit of anger, listen to her? The originally scarlet flames became even denser. Fighting intent condensed in the flames, and a terrifying aura pervaded the entire giant ship. Many of the first Grotto Heaven realm martial artists in the crowd turned somewhat pale. Ji Luoyu, you'd better mind your own business. I must kill this brat. Sure enough, he was as unreasonable as Feng Ming-Qishan. He did not even give face to Ji Luoyu. Boom! It was as if a ball of raging fire had shot out from where Xiao Zhan was originally standing. The deck had already been burned black by the raging fire. The sea breeze blew gently, and it was completely shattered. Wherever Xiao Zhan passed, it was completely raging fire, whether it was the deck or the tables and chairs. all of them were burning. On this path of flames, it was a complete mess, a complete mess. Some people were touched by his aura and actually vomited blood on the spot. It seemed that their injuries were not light, seeing Xiao Zhan pouncing over with incomparable killing intent. Ling Xiao's face was also covered with a gloomy coldness. Behind him, the huge Taotai seemed to tear through the void and walked out, letting out a shocking roar. His sword intent rose to the extreme, and the surrounding tables and chairs were torn into pieces. Not enough. Facing Xiao Zhan's all-out attack, Ling Xiao understood that it was difficult to resist with his own strength, so he began to extract a strand of the power of the human king in his body, preparing to fight it out with Xiao Zhan. There were still 5 strands of the power of the human king. Using it before the Grotto Heaven realm was the most effective, so Ling Xiao was not stingy now. Raging Inferno Beast. A furious roar came from Xiao Zhan's throat. His entire person seemed to have transformed into a ferocious monster condensed from raging flames. Mixed with the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, he fearlessly pounced towards Ling Xiao. In his cold eyes, black and white were spinning. The Taiji I had already been activated. It was currently analyzing the weakness and strength of Xiao Zhan's attack. Ling Xiao could feel that the other party's attack had yet to arrive, but the hot air that hit him in the face seemed to want to burn his body. He still did not move, but the killing intent on the shadow sword became even thicker. The giant Taotai shadow behind him also became more and more real. Both of you stop for me. Ji Luoyu finally made a move. She was unable to stop the two people's battle and could only make a move to stop them. This girl's age was only a year older than Ling Xiao. However, her cultivation had actually already reached the level of the 3rd Grotto Heaven realm, even stronger than Danqing. A lively and agile figure appeared between Ling Xiao and Xiao Zhan in an instant, following a delicate shout. "Idiot!" Ling Xiao cursed. Even if she was a 3rd Grotto Heaven realm martial artist, appearing between him and Xiao Zhan at this time was simply courting death. Chapter 1258. In Ling Xiao's opinion, the destructive power of his and Xiao Zhan's attack could not be blocked without the cultivation of the 5th Grotto Heaven realm or above, unless Ji Luoyu had some kind of magic weapon. It turned out that his guess was right. Ji Luoyu thought that she could easily block the attacks of the two people, but she suddenly realized that she was too careless when she was in the middle of the whirlpool. She had no choice but to take out her magic weapon to protect herself. It was a beautiful hairpin. The hairpin slashed across the air, and with her cultivation of the 3rd Grotto Heaven realm, she sent the furious Xiao Zhan flying away. As for Ling Xiao, he had already stopped attacking, so he was fine. After Xiao Zhan retreated 7 or 8 steps, he stood still, but his face was a little pale. "Little Medicine King, this is a grudge between me and him. Why did you intervene?" His face was very ugly. Originally, this attack should have been able to kill Ling Xiao, or at least seriously injure Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao hand over the antidote. But now, not only did he fail, but he was also injured. The gains did not make up for the losses. "Xiao Zhan, don't forget that this is my master's banquet. Do you want to ruin this banquet?" Ji Luoyu shouted. Xiao Zhan realized at this time how reckless he had been. But when he thought of being poisoned, his mood became unstable again. "Ji Luoyu, it's my fault for attacking, but that boy used poison. At least let him take out the antidote, right?" Xiao Zhan stopped attacking, but he must get the antidote. Ji Luoyu nodded and said, "Don't worry, General Xiao. I will help you get your antidote. If it doesn't work, don't you still have my master? Do you think that my master can't cure your poison?" Hearing this, Xiao Zhan's face calmed down a little. She was right. With the Medicine King's son saw, what was he afraid of? "Boy, if it weren't for the little Medicine King Jiliu, I would have killed you today. Quickly hand over the antidote and stay away from Princess Yunya in the future." Otherwise, I will beat you every time I see you." Xiao Zhan let out a final roar. He had already heard the footsteps of several experts and knew that today's battle could not continue. If she hadn't made a move, you would have been the one to die today. Ling Xiao sneered and said, "Also, don't even think about the antidote. Unless you chop off your right arm that attacked me today, you can go beg Medicine King Sunbu." He had already used the power of a sovereign personage. Hence, the result of that collision was still unknown. If he used all his trump cards, then the one who would die would definitely be Xiao Zhan. Therefore, when Ji Luoyu stepped forward to stop them, she wasn't actually saving Ling Xiao, but Xiao Zhan. "Little Medicine King, did you hear that? This child is simply stubborn." Xiao Zhan looked at Ji Luoyu and said. Ji Luoyu also frowned. She looked at Ling Xiao and said, "Why don't you know what's good for you? Hurry up and take out the antidote. Otherwise, even I can't help you." "Don't know what's good for me?" Ling Xiao sneered and said, "The one who doesn't know what's good for him is Xiao Zhan. It was he who attacked me as soon as he arrived. As the master of this banquet and the disciple of Medicine King Sunbu, not only did you not stop him, you even sat there and watched the fun. Now that he is poisoned, you come to me for the antidote and say that I don't know what's good for me. Is there such a logic in this world?" I saved you," Ji Luoyu said indignantly. "Wrong, the one you saved was him." Ling Xiao said coolly, "I advise you it's best not to meddle in other people's business in this matter." "Haha, you'd better sit back down. You really didn't handle today's matter well." A loud and clear voice sounded. Immediately after, a middle-aged man wearing a light green robe appeared. The moment this person arrived, the atmosphere immediately changed. His warm smile was as warm as the sun in spring. It could melt the resentment in everyone's heart. At that moment, Ling Xiao almost agreed to help Xiao Zhan detoxify the poison. However, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in his body and defeated this feeling instantly. He knew that it was the will of the mountain river martial spirit that helped him. What a terrifying soul power! Ling Xiao looked at Sunbu and was shocked. Was this Medicine King Sunbu? He was indeed very powerful. Not only was this guy's cultivation shocking, even his soul power was so terrifying. It was really shocking. However, what he didn't know was that Medicine King Sunbu was even more surprised than him. Such a young guy was actually able to resist his soul power. This was really strange. "Little guy, when it's possible to let people off, one should be lenient. General Lai Hua Xiao Zhan was muddle-headed for a moment and attacked you. Why don't everyone take a step back and help him detoxify the poison for this old man's sake?" Sanbu couldn't use his soul power to suppress Ling Xiao, so he chose to persuade Ling Xiao in a gentle voice. However, he didn't know that his actions just now had already made Ling Xiao unhappy. A sudden soul suppression was very dangerous. The slightest carelessness could turn people into idiots. Obviously, Sunbu didn't think about what would happen to Ling Xiao. He only cared about whether his face could be used. At this moment, he was persuading Ling Xiao again. How could Ling Xiao give him face? "I'm sorry, Senior Medicine King. This is a private matter between me and Xiao Zhan. I hope Senior won't interfere." His words were considered polite because the other party was Medicine King Sunbu of the White Tiger Continent. Ling Xiao didn't want to completely anger him. However, when these words came out, everyone was shocked. What was going on? Ling Xiao, this brat, really took himself seriously. He actually didn't even give face to Medicine King Sunbu. Looking at the entire Sky Dragon continent and Divine Phoenix continent, including the Five Immortals Island, they had never heard of anyone who dared to not give face to Medicine King Sunbu. Sunbu was also clearly a little surprised. He didn't easily plead for mercy for people, but every time he did, it was bound to be effective. Today, facing Ling Xiao, he actually miscalculated. Ling Xiao actually didn't listen to him. "Ling Xiao, do you know what you're saying?" "Ji Luoyu, questioned loudly. Xiao Zhan and Dan Qing were secretly laughing. Offending Medicine King Sun Bu, this Ling Xiao would probably have a hard time in the future. However, in Ling Xiao's view, he only refused the other party's persuasion and didn't do anything excessive. If Medicine King Sun Bu was angry about this, then he was nothing more than a narrow-minded villain. Little guy, you don't seem to have heard clearly. This old man isn't discussing with you, but ordering you. Sun Bu was indeed a narrow-minded and overbearing person. Perhaps it was because he stood at the top position of the White Tiger Continent's pharmacists for a long time, so basically no one dared to offend him. Even the top experts of the White Tiger Continent had to give him some face. No one dared to refuse his persuasion to his face. He was quite angry at Ling Xiao's reaction. Order? What qualifications do you have to order me? Ling Xiao frowned and said, Chapter 1259. Ling Xiao admitted that Sun Sa was stronger than him in terms of cultivation and alchemy. But this didn't mean that he had to lower his head and admit his mistake in front of such a person. What's more, he also had a trump card, so he wasn't necessarily afraid of Medicine King Sun Sa. Is that kid crazy? He dares to speak to Senior Medicine King like that? This time, even Xiao Zhan and Dan Qing sucked in a breath of cold air. Ling Xiao's audacity was simply beyond their expectations. Not afraid of death was probably referring to this kind of person. Qualification? This old man can crush you like an ant at any time. Medicine King Sun Sa revealed a smile. Although it wasn't so sinister, it was filled with killing intent. Then you can try. Ling Xiao said indifferently. As a dignified senior, you don't care about the ins and outs of the matter, nor do you know how to uphold justice. You only use strength to suppress others. Do you really think that there's no one in our Divine Phoenix Continent and Sky Dragon Continent? Cough, cough, brother Sun, why are you angry with a child? He's just a child after all. Ling Xiao raised this matter to a battle between Divine Phoenix Continent, Sky Dragon Continent, and White Tiger Continent, so Chang'e Ancestor had to speak up. Chang'e Immortal Island was the strongest force in the first two continents. If he acted like a grandson, then Chang'e Immortal Island wouldn't have the qualifications to command the heroes in the future. Dan Chang'e, could it be that you want to help this kid? Medicine King Sun Sa asked with a gloomy face. Brother Sun, don't be so angry. Do you really want to become enemies with Divine Phoenix Continent and Sky Dragon Continent for a child? This time, the one who spoke was a man with long green hair and half a mask. This person's clothes had the symbol of the Sky Dragon Trading Company. If he wasn't mistaken, he should be the person in charge of the Sky Dragon Trading Company in White Tiger Continent. Compared to Ji Luoyu, he was clearly more suitable for this identity. Ji Qing, you also want to plead for this kid? Sun Sa frowned and said, if Chang'e Ancestor was pleading for Ling Xiao, he could understand. After all, Ling Xiao saved Chang'e Ancestor's life. But why Ji Qing was like this, he could not quite figure it out. I'm not pleading for leniency. I'm just being reasonable. Even if a child is a little willful, there's no need for us to take action. It would seem degrading. Ji Qing said indifferently. Humph. Consider yourself lucky, kid. However, even if you don't detoxify Xiao Zhan, do you really think I can't detoxify this poison? Sun Zai could not give Ancestor lasting joy face, but Ji Qing's face he still had to give. This person obtained a demonic eye when he was young and comprehended the ancient demonic race's inheritance. He was both righteous and evil and was rather terrifying. The people of the White Tiger Continent would rather provoke him, Sun Zai, than provoke this guy. I naturally have no objections if Senior wants to cure Xiao Zhan's poison. However, if you want me to do it, then he must sever his own right arm. There's nothing to discuss. Ling Xiao said, faintly, it's just that I need to remind you that he's poisoned with white blood poison. It's very difficult to remove the poison with ordinary methods. It's not something that can be done just because you're skilled in medicine. Too arrogant. Who does he think he is to actually dare point fingers at Senior Medicine King? Yeah, it's just a blind cat catching a dead mouse and helping Ancestor Lasting Joy to detoxify the poison. He really thinks of himself as a great immortal. The crowd immediately boiled over. Everyone felt that Ling Xiao, this guy, was too arrogant. There was no helping it. These people present were all guests invited by Medicine King Sun Zai. They naturally had to side with Medicine King Sun Zai. Moreover, no one thought that what Ling Xiao said was right. Ling Xiao did not explain anything. He was just doing his duty to give a reminder. Whether the other party listened or not, that was their business. I'll let you see today how a black-grade alchemist treats and detoxifies. Medicine King Sun Zai gave Ling Xiao a glance indifferently. After that, he pointed his finger at Xiao Zhan. Several streams of force shot out and started wandering around Xiao Zhan's body. The scene of him treating the illness could simply be rated as gorgeous. Various colors of force constantly flickered, making people cry out in satisfaction. Furthermore, every time he attacked, he was extremely accurate. Many people were dumbstruck with amazement. Good. There were even people who stood up and shouted loudly. A cold smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. Treating and saving people was not magic. He admitted that Medicine King Sun Zai's skills were superb. However, the white blood poison really could not be treated like this. It could not be eradicated without blood exchange. Medicine King Sun Zai did this purely to show off his skills. This kind of person was too superficial. He did not believe that this guy could be a good alchemist. A quarter of an hour passed. Cold sweat appeared on Sun Zai's forehead. However, Xiao Zhan's expression became even worse. Not only did the white blood poison not weaken, it became even more ferocious. It actually nibbled away a full 1/3 of Xiao Zhan's blood, causing Xiao Zhan to almost enter a state of near death. How could this be? Sun Zai's old face was flushed red. He did not understand why it was like this. Senior, the white blood poison is different from ordinary poisons. Your method is wrong. Even if your medical skills are superb, not only can it not save people, it will harm people instead. Ling Xiao reminded. If Xiao Zhan dies, don't blame me. Originally, the white blood poison in his body would automatically disappear after a period of time. However, the illness is already incurable now. Unless all the blood in his body is replaced, he will undoubtedly die. His expression was still indifferent. However, these words were extremely mocking in Sun Zai's ears. He was not saving people, but harming people? The other martial artists also shut their mouths. At this moment, they finally understood that Ling Xiao's words were not just words to scare people. What he said was actually true. Ling Xiao, save me. Xiao Zhan did not want to die. Although he was overbearing and unreasonable, his desire for life was as strong as that of ordinary people. I can save you, but you have to apologize to me in front of these people. Furthermore, you have to break one of your arms and swear that you will not cause trouble for me in the future. Otherwise, you will die without a burial place. Ling Xiao looked at Xiao Zhan indifferently. What did it mean to have only himself to blame? This was what it meant to have only himself to blame. Ling Xiao was not bad. He was even willing to agree to save people. If it was someone else, they would not even bother with this guy. You don't believe this old man? Sun Zai looked at Xiao Zhan furiously and asked. That's not it. This junior appreciates senior's kindness. But this is Ling Xiao's white blood poison. Even if it's you, I'm afraid that it will take some time to thoroughly study it. Xiao Zhan hurriedly explained. Humph, do as you wish. Sun Zai also understood that it would be useless for him to continue tormenting himself. Instead, it would be even more embarrassing. He glanced at Ling Xiao indifferently and said, This time this old man lost because I did not understand the white blood poison. It's not that my medical skills are inferior to yours. That's natural. Senior's medical skills are more than several times better than this junior's. Ling Xiao was still very modest. Moreover, his medical skills were indeed not as brilliant as Sun's eyes. However, the white blood poison only existed in the world in his memory. Therefore, only he knew how to cure it. Moreover, the white blood poison in his light and shadow divine all had been modified. It possessed his powerful soul force, and its reproduction speed was even faster. Chapter 1260. After being poisoned by Ling Zhao's white blood poison, Xiaozhan had not died. In fact, he was strong enough. If it were a warrior in the celestial realm, he would have bled to death. Humph, you know what's good for you. Sun Sa did not say anything. After all, he was a senior and a big shot. If he continued to chatter, he would be at a disadvantage. Ah! At the moment when Sun Sa stopped talking, Xiaozhan directly cut off his right arm with a knife. Then he apologized to Ling Xiao in front of everyone. Although Xiaozhan was very reluctant, he did not dare to say anything to offend Ling Xiao, because only Ling Xiao could save his life. Seeing that you are quite sincere, I'll give you a chance. Ling Xiao glanced at Xiaozhan indifferently. Then he walked toward Xiaozhan and directly absorbed the white blood poison into his body. It's all right. Thank you. Xiaozhan checked his body. Sure enough, there was no problem. He suddenly looked at Ling Xiao excitedly, knelt on one knee, and said, However, at that moment, a sharp weapon shot out from behind his neck and stabbed toward Ling Xiao's throat. Be careful. No. Princess Yunya, Phoenix Cry, and Piao Shui shouted almost at the same time. Xiaozhan's face showed a grim smile. He had always been a person who did not suffer losses. Ling Xiao had humiliated him. How could he let it go? Since the white blood poison had been cured, there was no need to keep Ling Xiao alive. He did not believe that Ling Xiao could avoid such a close sneak attack. Ancestor Changle wanted to save him, but there was no chance at all. Medicine King Sun Sa's face showed a sneer. Xiaozhan still understood what he meant. If Ling Xiao did not die, how could he, Sun Sa, live? Alas, isn't it good to be alive? A soft sigh came from Ling Xiao's mouth. His figure disappeared from where he was. Ling Xiao would never trust his enemies, especially when this person had wanted to take his life. The reason why he saved Xiaozhan was just for show. He wanted the world to know that he, Ling Xiao, had no intention of taking Xiaozhan's life. It was Xiaozhan who was courting death. The moment Ling Xiao disappeared, Princess Yunya's slender hand patted Xiaozhan's head. His expression was as cold as ice. Shameless bastard, you deserve to die. Princess Yun, you had almost made a big mistake. If Ling Xiao had died here, not only would their plan have been completely overturned. Moreover, the prestige that he had just established within the Heavenly Dragon Trading Company would also vanish. Seeing this scene, Corpse Granny, who was about to sneak attack Ling Xiao, was so scared that she hurriedly recalled her shadow demon. Princess Yin had actually killed General Lai Hua, one of the 13 divine generals of the Divine Phoenix Empire, for Ling Xiao's sake, so she would definitely attack her as well. Obviously, Ji Qing supported Princess Yunya. Patriarch Changle also wanted to protect Ling Xiao. She didn't want to die yet. Ling Xiao's figure reappeared. He glanced at Medicine King Sun, saw indifferently, and didn't say anything. He felt that Xiaozhan's sneak attack this time was most likely related to Medicine King Sun Sa, although Xiaozhan must have thought so himself. But if it wasn't for Sun Sa's instigation, he wouldn't have done so. This grudge had been formed. Well, everyone, don't let this unhappy scene spoil your mood. Brother Sun, I think it's better to order someone to clean up the scene. I didn't expect the dignified General Lai Hua to be so despicable and shameless. What a pity, Ji Qing said indifferently. Someone, clean up the scene and continue the banquet. Sun Sa gritted his teeth. Xiao Zhan's sneak attack had failed, and his plan had failed. but it didn't matter. Anyway, there was still tomorrow's alchemy conference. He didn't believe that Ling Xiao could escape from his grasp. Soon, someone cleaned up the bloody scene, and then people drank and chatted absent-mindedly. Obviously, not everyone could easily let go of what had just happened. Ji Qing, why are you protecting that little guy? He created the Celestial Empire and didn't revive your Ji family's sacred dynasty. After sitting down, Medicine King Sun asked Ji Qing puzzledly. If Ji Qing wasn't here, he would definitely make Ling Xiao pay the price today. The Celestial Empire is just a child's play. The sacred dynasty will be revived in the end, and this Ling Xiao is the key to reviving the sacred dynasty. Ji Qing said indifferently. He had already made it very clear that he would definitely not let go of such a good talent like Ling Xiao. This was to warn Sun Sa not to make a move against Ling Xiao. Sun Sa smiled and said, Brother Ji, don't you see that kid's character clearly? He's a guy who won't accept anything. If we fall out, he won't recognize anyone. Do you really think you have the ability to make him abandon the Celestial Empire and revive the sacred dynasty? Brother Sun doesn't need to worry about this matter. It's just that this person, this Ji, will protect. Ji Qing said indifferently. Sun Sa's slightly aged face twitched fiercely, but he didn't say anything. If Ji Qing wanted to protect someone, of course he couldn't openly make a move. However, it wasn't impossible to make a move behind his back. Before the boring banquet ended, Ling Xiao and Yunya left. However, this banquet allowed Ling Xiao to see the true face of Medicine King Sun Sa. He used to admire this person and even thought of becoming friends with him, despite their age difference. However, now he was very disappointed in this person. That night it was a silent night. Although there were people who wandered around Princess Yunya's residence at night, trying to find a chance to steal the Imperial Jade Seal. They were scared away by Cold Plum and Princess Yunya. The Moon Maiden didn't make a move. The next day, there were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. The sky was clear, as if it had been washed. It was really a good day. To hold the alchemy conference on such a day, it was extremely good for both the pharmacists and the audience. The city of Sin, a place that was regarded as a city without a master, had many important people come for the first alchemy conference, hosted by the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island. Although the alchemy conference had been held a few times before, compared to this one, whether it was in terms of scale or quality, it was much better. When the first ray of light appeared on the horizon, the entire dark and gloomy city of Sin seemed to have a trace of warmth. On the long street, among the people coming and going, a few figures wearing special uniforms appeared. These uniforms were specially prepared by the Everlasting Joy Celestial Island for the pharmacists participating in the alchemy conference. The men's uniforms were white and the women's uniforms were pink. Not only were they fashionable, but they were also very unique. This was also to allow the ordinary people to clearly recognize these pharmacists. In the mysterious world, pharmacists were a noble profession that was highly respected and trusted by martial artists. To martial artists, pharmacists were noble existences that could give them a second chance at life. Not only were they noble, but they were also mysterious. After all, most pharmacists preferred to concentrate on studying alchemy. They rarely gathered together to hold events. However, today in the city of Sin, there were thousands of pharmacists walking out from all over the city. They all walked towards the venue of the alchemy conference, Everlasting Joy Square. Chapter 1261. Of course, this Changle Square was a newly built place. Many people knew that it used to be the mansion of the Black Python clan, which was destroyed in the battle on the Long Street. People who liked to sleep in usually got up early at this time. They leaned against the window and stared at the pharmacists on the street, pointing at them. Their eyes were full of awe and worship. Ling Xiao also opened his eyes. He hadn't slept all night. It was no longer a problem for warriors at this cultivation level to not sleep. Through a night of cultivation, He drew on the experience of fighting with Xiao Zhan last night. Finally, his cultivation broke through from the early stage of 10 directions, heaven, to the middle stage of 10 directions, heaven. This was a small step, but it was of great significance to Ling Xiao. This also showed that his previous cultivation method was correct and there was no problem. As soon as he walked out of the door, he saw Cold Plum sitting cross-legged at the foot of the wall. This girl had actually stayed outside to guard him for the entire night. "Master, you're awake?" Hearing the sound of the door opening, Cold Plum immediately stood up and said, "It seems to be quite lively outside." Even when he was cultivating, Ling Xiao could hear the bustling sounds on the street. It seemed that many people were excitedly discussing things. "Of course it's lively." Without waiting for Cold Plum to answer, Princess Yunya's voice sounded. Her graceful figure walked through the flowers. This is the alchemy conference hosted by Chang'e Celestial Island. There are also big shots like Ji Qing and Sun Sa as judges. As long as you are not an idiot, you should understand what kind of good luck you have to achieve in such a conference. Yes, although pharmacists sound mysterious, they are still human after all. They also have 7 emotions and 6 desires. They also hope to get support and trust to create their own future. Ling Xiao smiled and said, "After all, not everyone is as lucky as me to find a good master and have the help of a noble person like Princess Yunya. Actually, I'm really curious. I can understand that others participate in the alchemy conference to get help from noble people. But you already have these resources. Why do you still participate?" Princess Yunya asked with some confusion. "Don't you know the reward of this alchemy conference?" Ling Xiao asked with a smile. "Moonstone?" "Yes, it's that moonstone. Rumor has it that it possesses the power of moonlight. It's extremely good for Big Sister Moon Lady. The faster Big Sister Moon Lady recovers her cultivation, the safer I will be. Actually, this is also for me." Ling Xiao nodded. For ordinary martial artists, the use of the moonstone was to increase their cultivation speed. Furthermore, it could absorb the power of the moon essence to transform their bodies. For apothecaries, they could avoid accidentally ingesting poison, and they could also use the power of the moon to improve medicinal herbs. These effects were extremely good. Of course, the rewards for the champion of the alchemy conference were not only moonstones, but also spirit stones, magic treasures, and other rewards. But what Ling Xiao valued the most was still the moonstone. This thing was practically tailor-made for a moon maiden. Not only could it provide the moon maiden with more moonlight power, but it could also reduce the moon maiden's physical pain and speed up her cultivation. It would be a pity if he didn't get it. "You're really thoughtful." Yun couldn't help but feel jealous. She knew that it was completely unreasonable for her to be jealous of the Moon Maiden. After all, the only woman that Ling Xiao admitted to liking was the Moon Maiden. In Ling Xiao's eyes, she might not even be as important as Cold Plum, let alone the Moon Maiden. She could only be jealous in her heart. "Let's go." Ling Xiao didn't know what Yunya was thinking. He looked into the distance. The cannon salute had already sounded. Today, the city of Sin was destined to not be peaceful. Stepping into the Chang'e Square, where the alchemy conference was located, Ling Xiao temporarily sat in the preparation area because the conference hadn't officially started yet. Due to his special status, he was specially recommended by the Chang'e Patriarch and had participated in the internal test. Therefore, he was qualified to sit in the VIP seats in the preparation area. Even the Moon Maiden, Cold Plum, Princess Yunya, Hua Fuguang, and Hua Luiying were able to bask in the limelight. Looking down from the VIP seats, the huge square was filled with people, other than the Moon Maiden and Pink Medicine Masters. There were also a large number of spectators. These spectators were not just locals of the City of Sin. They came from dozens of countries on the Divine Phoenix continent and the Tianlong continent. Even sitting in the quieter VIP seats, Ling Xiao could hear the deafening screams. These crazy screams were the people's worship for the medicine masters. Listening to these screams, Even Ling Xiao, who had always been calm, couldn't help but feel fanatical emotions rising in his heart. Since he was going to participate in this alchemy conference, he had to get first place. In the sky, the red sun had revealed its true appearance. The number of people in the preparation area and the spectator area was also increasing. Ling Xiao couldn't help but mischievously imagine that if a meteorite fell, it would probably kill more than 100,000 people. How was this an alchemy conference? It was more like a superstars fan meeting. The conference hadn't even started yet, but the craze was about to break through the sky. Those people are all looking at you, Yuan Yi suddenly said with a smile. Ling Xiao shook his head helplessly and said, "They're not looking at me. They're looking at the beauties next to me." Pairs of eyes filled with jealousy shot towards him from all directions. It was as if they could burn him up. Whoosh! Suddenly, the screams became even louder. Some people finally shifted their gaze and looked in another direction. There, Feng Ming, Piao Shui, and Ji Luoyu entered the VIP seats with a group of beautiful medicine masters. Only then did they attract some people's attention. Ling Xiao was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when the two of them walked towards him. His jealousy burned even more fiercely. At this moment, Ling Xiao felt as if he was being roasted in an oven. That feeling was really unpleasant. One had to know that those were the gazes of martial artists. Martial artists' gazes were filled with fighting intent. With so many battle skills piled up, even he couldn't handle it. Ling Xiao, what happened last night really scared me, but at least it was a close call. I hope that you won't be affected by what happened last night in today's alchemy conference. You must get a good result. Feng Ming, Piao Shui smiled at Ling Xiao and said, "Sister Piao Shui, you're underestimating this celestial emperor too much. He even dared to refute my master. At the very least, he should be in the top 3 of the alchemy conference." Ji Luoyu actually followed Piao Shui over and smiled at Ling Xiao. This girl was usually caught very tightly by the medicine king, Sun Bu, so she had some rebellious mentality. She really wanted to see someone who dared to refute her master. She didn't expect that she would really see it last night. Not only did Ling Xiao survive after refuting her master, but he also won in terms of detoxification. She was somewhat envious and impressed by Ling Xiao. However, when she saw Moon Maiden and Cold Plum sitting beside Ling Xiao, she was a little surprised. Chapter 1262. Ling Xiao's appearance could be considered handsome, but it was definitely not super handsome. But he did not expect that he was so popular with women. These two beside him were simply the best. Not to mention the two of them, even Hua Fuguang and Hua Luiying were a pair of exquisite twin sisters. This Ling Xiao really had good luck with women. But he did not know that Ling Xiao was currently secretly depressed because of this degree of popularity. Perhaps out of competition, Feng Ming, Piao Shui, and Ji Yu also sat in front of and behind Ling Xiao. These 7 women surrounded Ling Xiao, and a fragrance assailed his nostrils. Ling Xiao, who had always been calm, had no choice but to close his eyes and circulate his heavenly yuan energy to calm himself down. But just as he closed his eyes, a viper-like gaze made him feel uncomfortable all over. He turned his head and just happened to see Dan Qing's pair of eyes. That was a pair of eyes that seemed to be staring at some father enemy, like the ice-cold eyes of a viper filled with resentment. Perhaps because he saw Ling Xiao, Dan Qing gave him a thumbs up angrily, then pointed his thumb downwards. Through lip reading, Ling Xiao roughly knew what he was saying. "Snatching my sister Piao Shui and seducing my sister Luoyu, you and I are irreconcilable. Just wait to make a fool of yourself in today's alchemy conference." Ling Xiao straightforwardly gave him a middle finger, then directly transmitted his voice. "Although I have no interest in snatching women from you, a scum like you can't win against me." Hearing these words, Dan Qing even wished that he could curse out loud. But thinking of Xiao Zhan's death last night, he immediately shut his mouth. Ling Xiao had strong protectors around him, so a head-on clash was definitely out of the question. Then he could only fight it out in the alchemy conference. Actually, there was more than one gaze peeping at Ling Xiao. It was just that another person's gaze was more concealed. This person was nicknamed Frost General, and was similarly one of the 13 Divine Phoenix Empire's divine generals. Furthermore, he was Xiao Zhan's younger brother, Xiao Ji. Xiao Ji's cultivation was much stronger than Xiao Zhan's. Among the 13 godly generals, his ranking was close to Jining's. His strength was not only in terms of cultivation, but also in his wisdom. Of course, it could also be said that he was cunning. Up until now, no one had ever seen him personally fight. His battles were usually completed through his mouth and brain. The enemy was crippled before he could even make a move. Xiao Ji had only arrived at the city of Sin today. He originally didn't plan to come, but the death of his elder brother, Xiao Zhan, filled him with rage. He wanted to see what kind of person the culprit behind his brother's death was. General Xiao, since our enemy is Ling Xiao, why don't we cooperate? Sitting beside Xiao Ji were Corpse Granny, Zhang Tianda, and Swallow's representative. These three fellows were in cahoots now. Of course, it wasn't just for Ling Xiao's death, but for the Imperial Jade Seal in Ling Xiao's hands. Of course we can cooperate. You guys get the Imperial Jade Seal, and I want Ling Xiao's life. Although he said that, Xiao Ji actually had his own plans. Not only did he want Ling Xiao to die, he also wanted to take the Imperial Jade Seal for himself. After obtaining the human monarch's notes, he would then present it to the heir, Phoenix Cry Mountain. As for Corpse Granny and the other two, if they were obedient, they could still live. If they didn't know their limits and insisted on fighting with him for the Imperial Jade Seal, then he wouldn't mind directly killing them. Time slowly passed. A huge magical artifact clock was placed on the plaza. Finally, after the clear sound of the bell, an even louder and more lively cannon salute soared into the sky. Although it was daytime, these cannon salutes were still dazzling and beautiful. As one of the judges of the convention, as well as the organizer of the convention, Ancestor Changle slowly stood up and walked to the rostrum. He coughed twice at the sound amplification artifact placed there. Although these two sounds were only coughs, it instantly silenced the chaotic convention. Nearly 10,000 alchemists, as well as over 100,000 spectators, looked in his direction at the same time. Other than a few people, there really wasn't anyone who dared to rashly provoke this ancestor from Changle Celestial Island. This was because he was the true island master of Changle Celestial Island. This old man won't say any unnecessary nonsense. Now, this old man represents Changle Celestial Island to announce that the first new alchemy convention has officially begun. Boom! Like a volcanic eruption, the scene instantly boiled over. Between heaven and earth, incomparably excited and emotional shouts resounded. After Ancestor Changle announced the start of the convention, the alchemists all sat up from their preparation seats and entered their respective alchemy platforms according to the number plates they had received earlier. In that instant, the originally quiet plaza once again resounded with heaven-shaking cheers. I don't seem to have a number plate. Ling Xiao was stunned for a moment. Only then did he realize that after he entered the venue, no one reminded him to get a number plate. I don't have one either. Ji Luoyu smiled and said, those of us who participated in the internal test and got into the top 10 don't need to get a number plate because our alchemy platforms are over there. As she spoke, she pointed at the main stage. At that moment, there were already 10 alchemy platforms on the main stage. Are you kidding me? Refining pills in such a conspicuous place. Can you maintain your composure? Ling Xiao smiled bitterly. I don't know if you can, but I definitely can. Dan Qing, who was not far away, sneered and then leaped out. Dan Qing, who was at the second grotto heaven realm, had a very special martial soul. It was a cauldron, and his grotto heaven realm was the cauldron grotto heaven. As he leaped into the air, his martial soul appeared, and the cauldron floated in midair. Dan Qing landed in the venue in an extremely elegant manner. Cheers immediately filled the air. People respected alchemists, and, of course, they also hoped that these alchemists could show them more powerful abilities. Although the alchemy convention had just begun, this movement technique was considered the last element of the show. Dan Qing's move was exactly what the audience wanted. Brother Dan Qing, your cultivation is not bad, and your grotto heaven realm is not weak either. Ling Xiao, it's up to you later. I'll make a move first. Ji Luoyu smiled slightly, stepped lightly with her feet, and then leaped into the air. In midair, she danced like a beautiful butterfly. Then, just as she was about to slide down, she took off the hairpin on her head and glided to the ground. Although in terms of elegance and beauty, she was comparable to Dan Qing. But Ji Luoyu was a beauty after all. Beautiful women would always attract more attention and cheers. A woo, wolf howls could be heard from the spectator seats. The audience obviously liked Ji Luoyu's performance. Grotto Heaven realm martial artists were obviously not qualified to fly, but they could glide for a short period of time. Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu's performance could be said to be outstanding. Their martial souls combined with their Dharma treasures to perform that graceful gliding posture, which was amazing. Chapter 1263. That water ripple hairpin isn't a flying Dharma treasure, right? It should be a defensive Dharma treasure. Ji Luoyu can actually use it to glide, turning the defensive power into gliding power. Good, Sun Zai, your little disciple is not bad. Seeing Ji Luoyu's performance, even Ji Qing, who usually didn't like to praise people, couldn't help but praise. Damn, you're really shameless. How can you praise your granddaughter like that? Ancestor Changle couldn't help but scold. I'm praising her. What's wrong with that? Do you think her movement technique isn't good? Ji Qing looked at Dan Changle and asked. Yes, it's indeed not bad, but compared to Dan Qing, it's not much better. Their movement techniques should be the most exquisite among the pharmacists participating in this alchemy conference. Dan Changle nodded and said, Isn't that enough? Ji Qing rolled his eyes at Dan Changle. I wonder how Ling Xiao is. Sun Zai suddenly smiled. With his arrogant character, I'm afraid he'll want to perform even more. Ancestor Changle shook his head and said, That's not necessarily true. This little guy usually keeps a low profile. As long as no one provokes him, he won't attract too much attention. Just as Ancestor Changle said, Ling Xiao wasn't interested in performing his movement technique at all. In his mind, his movement technique was used for battle. If it was exposed, it would be equivalent to losing the advantage in battle. That was definitely not a good thing. Therefore, he just jumped down so casually. Anyway, the distance here wasn't very high. Even if he fell, with his physical fitness, he wouldn't fall to his death. However, the moment he jumped out, a gust of evil wind suddenly attacked. He lost control of his body and began to fall faster. At the judges' table, Sun Zai's mouth raised into a sneer. There's no need for that, Brother Sunday. Why are you acting like a child? Ji Qing frowned and said, That gust of evil wind just now was released by Sun Zai. Brother Ji, you've misunderstood. Since this little guy is so low profile, I have to find a chance for him to perform. Sun Zai said shamelessly. Ancestor Changle secretly cursed this old thing for being shameless. The Moon Maiden's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, she did not help Ling Xiao. She didn't need to do anything for such a small matter. If he couldn't even solve such an emergency, then Ling Xiao was too weak. He didn't deserve to be her man. Sun Su, fuck your sister, female disciple. You sneak attacked me. Ling Xiao's reaction made Sun Sa's face suddenly turn ashen and very embarrassed. He didn't expect Ling Xiao to see through his sneak attack. What was even more unexpected was that Ling Xiao actually scolded him in front of so many people. Everyone was flabbergasted, and Ji Luoyu's face turned red. She was Sun Zai's only female apprentice. Ling Xiao said that, wasn't he talking about her? However, the strange thing was that she didn't feel angry at all. Instead, she found it amusing. It seemed like that fierce master of his had really met his match. This Ling Xiao was too daring. He really dared to say anything. How could one word be used to describe him as a bull? In fact, Ling Xiao didn't think too much about it. Originally, he just wanted to jump down and be done with it. However, with Sun Zai's actions, he was like a bird whose wings were blown by a strong wind. He instantly lost his balance and fell down. He was angry and directly scolded. However, thinking that Sun Zai's sister was probably very old, he changed to a female disciple midway. Although Ji Luoyu was a little arrogant, her looks were not bad after all. She could still accept it. While scolding, Ling Xiao did not control his body. Instead, he allowed it to fall freely. His head fell towards the hard limestone floor. Although many martial artists knew that with the cultivation of Heaven Realm martial artists, they wouldn't die even if their heads hit the ground. However, it was still quite embarrassing. Ling Xiao was plotted against miserably by Sun Zai today. Dan Qing revealed a gloating expression. Phoenix Cry and Piao Shui covered their mouths and stood up. Ji Luoyu, on the other hand, wanted to help. Countless spectators were not stingy with their gazes on this player, who fell headfirst. They wanted to see how he would end up. On the contrary, Moon Maiden, Cold Plum, and Princess Yunya, who followed Ling Xiao, looked calm. It was as if the one who was about to make a fool of himself was not their relative or friend Ling Xiao, but an outsider. Therefore, the people who knew Ling Xiao the best were still them. Others had too little contact with Ling Xiao and knew too little about Ling Xiao. Although Ling Xiao was a person who didn't want to be in the limelight, he didn't want to make a fool of himself either. Countless people watched as Ling Xiao's head was about to touch the ground. Suddenly, an amazing scene appeared. On the originally empty ground, countless eerie white bones suddenly stretched out. In just an instant, these white bones connected to each other and controlled the speed of Ling Xiao's fall. They quickly formed a strange white bone throne. Ling Xiao's body was corrected by these white bones, and then he sat on it firmly, just like a king of white bones. At that moment, Ling Xiao still didn't use his movement technique, nor did he use the black and white wings. Instead, he chose the eye of the tomb of the god of sin. There were too many white bones in the eye of the tomb of the god of sin, and they gradually slowed down one by one. They could always slow down his rapid fall. What a powerful soul power! What a terrifying soul secret technique! How can this kid have such an ability? Even many Grotto Heaven realm martial artists can't do this. Seeing this scene, Ji Qing couldn't stay calm. His praise was even more amazing than praising his granddaughter Ji Luoyu. I'm also very surprised. I heard that Ling Xiao can condense the black and white wings. I thought that he would fly, but I didn't expect that he would do this. Ancestor Changel also couldn't help muttering to himself in surprise. White Bone Throne. This was really eye-catching. Sun Tzu originally wanted to make a fool of Ling Xiao, but the result was that he forced Ling Xiao to be in the limelight under the gaze of more than 100,000 people. When Medicine King Sun Tzu was in the White Tiger continent, he had never been so vexed. He didn't expect that today in the small Divine Phoenix continent he would be played by a little guy, and he was at a disadvantage in every aspect. The white bone throne slowly descended, and Ling Xiao stepped on the ground, right in front of his pill refining platform. Sigh, this isn't what I wanted. He really didn't want to be in the limelight, but now he was unexpectedly in the limelight. He actually thought of many ways to not be in the limelight and not make a fool of himself in midair, and directly ruled out the black and white wings and movement technique. But he didn't expect that things still went against his wishes. Wow! Cheers and applause instantly rang out. F***CK, he's really too handsome. Ling Xiao, I love you. I love you to death. Awesome. Screams, cheers, and applause seemed to converge into the crazy waves of the sea, simply resounding through the horizon. Ling Xiao's move was simply a powerful method to attract fans. But unfortunately, how many people knew that he didn't want to rely on this move to attract fans at all? If he had a choice, he would rather keep a low profile. Chapter 1264. In the VIP seats, the Moon Lady chuckled and shook her head. Why is this guy always in the limelight? No matter if he's hated or loved, he's the combination of a demon and a god. My master will always be the most outstanding. The ignorant Medicine King's son, Sa, did an ignorant and stupid thing. Cold Plum thought to herself, Tell me you didn't do it on purpose. You're so cool. Ji Luoyu's eyes were filled with crazy worship and admiration. It looked like Ling Xiao's actions just now had completely mesmerized this little girl. Hua Luiying and Hua Fuguang looked at each other and smiled. Their faces were filled with joy. Choosing to follow Ling Xiao was the most difficult, but also the most correct choice they had ever made. Especially today, they thought so even more. Yunyi shook her head and smiled bitterly. My goodness, can't you restrain yourself a little? If this goes on, all the good girls in the world will become your fangirls. By then, you'll be hated by even more people. Only Sun Sa's expression was uncertain. Entering the venue was just the beginning. After all, there were tens of thousands of people. Hence, this would last for about 15 minutes before the real competition began. Ling Xiao didn't care about the uproar in the crowd. He quickly focused on his alchemy platform. The alchemy platform was very simple. It was a platform made of green stone slabs. On top of it were some herbs and a pill formula. Beside it was an alchemy furnace. It wasn't too good, but it wasn't too bad either. It was a standard model. This alchemy convention didn't allow people to bring their own alchemy furnaces. This was to be fair. The most eye-catching thing was a mechanical bird on the green stone slab. It squatted there and stared at Ling Xiao. He didn't know what it was, but it was on every green stone slab. Ling Xiao glanced at the mechanical bird. He suspected that it might be used to monitor the medicine masters. It might also be used to record the results. Then he turned his attention to the pill recipe. After all, the medicine masters hadn't entered the venue yet. He could understand the exam questions in advance. This wasn't against the rules. In fact, there were many people who had the same idea as him. Seeing this pill formula, Ling Xiao's brows immediately furrowed. The pill formula was quite formal, but the strange thing was that some of the herbs listed in the formula were not present at all. In other words, the herbs were incomplete. Furthermore, the rules stated that they were not allowed to use their own medicinal herbs. What should he do? Could this still be used to concoct pills? If one were to forcefully use incomplete medicinal ingredients to refine pills, the final pills refined would definitely not be perfect and would not be good. Although the missing herbs were only supplementary herbs and would not affect the refining of the pill, it would definitely affect the effects of the pill. Ling Xiao furrowed his brows slightly. He was thinking, what was the purpose of this assessment? This was not the most troublesome part. The most troublesome thing was that there was only one set of herbs on the bluestone board. In other words, you had to refine the pill in one go. This was naturally not a problem for Ling Xiao, but for many alchemists it was extremely difficult. Of course, the pill forging for the first round of the examination wasn't too difficult. As long as one was a high-tier apothecary and not someone who was trying to fish in troubled waters, it shouldn't be a problem for them to succeed on the first try. Those who would fail were definitely those who did not work hard on refining pills normally. This topic was very interesting. Ling Xiao released his soul force. Without looking, He knew that many of the alchemists present had very ugly expressions. There was a type of alchemist in this world who was clearly already a yellow-level alchemist, but had never refined pills before. This was clearly a situation that went against common sense, but it was a fact. After all, the mystic world was not a completely fair world. There would be many things that did not conform to common sense. That was still very normal. However, there were also quite a number of people who truly had the ability. At the very least, these 10 people participating in the assessment on the rostrum all appeared very calm. Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu even revealed a disdainful expression. Very clearly, they were disdainful of such a topic. Perhaps at Medicine King Sun Bu's place, they had done such an assessment more than once. Ling Xiao smiled slightly. The more difficult the examination topic, the more challenging it was. Refining pills was not difficult, but if he wanted to refine pills with better effects, he had to think of a way. Brother Ling, no need to panic. As long as you can refine successfully, it counts as passing. You also don't have to learn from us and insist on refining outstanding pills. Dan Qing suddenly looked at Ling Xiao and said with a smile. His words sounded like concern at first, but when experienced carefully, it clearly revealed some smugness and mockery. Brother Dan Qing seems to have forgotten the results of the internal assessment. Ling Xiao said indifferently, "Does the feeling of being slapped in the face feel very good? You insist on coming up to let me slap you? Bullshit. What does the internal assessment count as? That was just me being a little careless. In the official assessment this time, I'll definitely let you know what a true alchemist is. It's absolutely not what a guy like you, who walks the evil path, can understand. In short, I'll definitely make you lose face. Don't look at how you're so popular with women now. When you fail later, you'll fall even more miserably." Regarding this first round of assessment, Dan Qing indeed had reason to be confident. He had once stayed at Alchemy King Sun Sa's place for a period of time, and such assessments had been conducted more than a few dozen times. It was precisely because of this that he was sure that he would definitely be stronger than Ling Xiao. He wanted to become the champion of the Alchemy Conference. He wanted to seize all the glory that Ling Xiao currently possessed. He even fantasized that the Moon Maiden would also cast him a look of admiration, and then ruthlessly abandon Ling Xiao. Thinking of this, he actually couldn't help but reveal a disgusting smile. Ling Xiao lightly shook his head. He didn't know what Dan Qing was thinking, but he was similarly very confident. After all the alchemists had entered the venue, another 5 minutes or so had passed. This was also in hopes that the alchemists who entered later could have certain amount of time to observe the alchemy platform and then make preparations. Basically, only 15 minutes had passed from start to finish. That huge artifact clock once again emitted a crisp sound. The alchemists all looked towards the judging panel. This time, the one who spoke wasn't Elder Changle, but Alchemy King Sun Sa. He didn't stand up and just sat on his seat just like that. Using an indifferent voice, he said, "The first round of assessment is very simple. Use the things in front of you and refine an extraordinary pill. The extraordinary pill is an ungraded pill. If you all have genuine talent and genuine knowledge, then you'll naturally be able to successfully refine it. But I need to remind you all that some of the medicinal ingredients in the pill formula can't be found on the spot. But you all must think of a way to refine an extraordinary pill whose medicinal effect reaches 60% without violating the rules. If you can't do it, then you'll be eliminated." There was an unquestionable tone in his voice. As the White Tiger Continent's Alchemy King Sun saw, every word of his possessed an extremely strong prestige. Other than a lunatic like Ling Xiao, probably very few people would be willing to argue with him. Chapter 1265. See the mechanical bird on your pill refinement platform? It will faithfully record your every action. If anyone violates the rules, you'll be eliminated immediately. At that time, it will let out an ear-piercing cry. In addition, the first round's assessment time is only half an hour. If you still can't complete within half an hour, you'll be eliminated as well. Pay attention to the time on the artifact clock. Don't panic. Talking until here, Medicine King Sun Bu looked at Ji Qing. The following words would be announced by Ji Qing. Ji Qing looked at everyone, stood up and said in a clear voice, "The rules are like what the Medicine King said. What you all have to do is not to blindly follow the rules. You have to use your brains more. There's only one set of medicinal herbs. Once wasted, that's a failure. So think clearly before taking action. Now, I announce that the Alchemy Assembly's first round officially begins." Following Ji Qing's words, over 10,000 alchemists all started the assessment nervously. But at the beginning, nobody went to refine pills. Instead, they quietly observed this pill, formula, and medicinal herbs, hoping to choose a balance. The time was 30 minutes, and there was only one set of medicinal herbs. The conditions were seriously too harsh. Ling Xiao naturally was not in a hurry to take action either. He already analyzed before. If one purely followed the medicinal herbs in the pill formula to refine the Transcendence pill, then the medicinal pill refined in the end would absolutely not reach 60%, which was also to say that it would definitely be eliminated. Therefore, this test question was not that simple. There must be some trick to it, as there was only one chance, even if it was Ling Xiao. He also did not dare to be negligent. He had to straighten everything out and figure it out before he could take action. Anyway, there were 30 minutes. To him, refining pills only needed 5 minutes. The rest of the time could be used to think. The majority of the people were thinking about the problem, but there were also people who started refining after a moment. Those were Little Medicine King Ji Luoyu and Dan Qing. These two people probably went through this kind of test more than once before. Not only did they know the goal of the test, they even knew the method to pass the test. Presumably, this test question was set by Medicine King Sun Bu. Ling Xiao thought about it and casually glanced at those two people's pill refinement platforms. These two people urged the furnace fire and started refining pills. It was just that due to the array's influence, he could not see clearly what method the other party used. This was probably to prevent alchemists from copying each other. Seems like Everlasting Joy, Old Ancestor, is quite considerate. However, even though he couldn't see how they operated, the two's skillful movements and confident expressions still made Ling Xiao show a look of admiration. No matter how he felt about these two people, no matter what their personalities were, at the very least, they were capable and very strong. In fact, he had already discovered this during the internal testing. As expected of a genius, with the guidance of a great teacher, he was indeed amazing. I failed. Finally, the first loser appeared. Only about 2 minutes had passed. This guy probably saw Dan Qing and Ji Luoyu refining pills, so he couldn't hold back and rushed to make a move. The result was a tragedy. Ling Xiao lightly shook his head and no longer paid attention to others. Instead, he focused his attention on his alchemy platform. The white bone throne appeared again, and he sat on it comfortably. There was one thing that he was rather dissatisfied with, and that was the fact that there wasn't a chair prepared for Apothecary to rest on. Many alchemists were shocked by his action. Some were speechless, and some didn't understand. However, it was only for a moment, and these people began to focus on refining pills again. Ling Xiao didn't care about the gazes of others. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. So that's it. He had already guessed the crux of this test. He realized that although there weren't a few supplementary herbs in the pill formula, there were some other herbs. If he thought about it carefully and was familiar with these herbs, he could think of extracting the ingredients from these herbs and then replace the supplementary herbs. In this way, the maximum medicinal effect could reach 80%. He used the see-through ability of the Tai Chi eye and looked at Ji Luoyu and Dan Qing's alchemy platforms. Sure enough, what these two guys were doing was exactly what he thought. However, He felt that this method was quite boring. Moreover, it wasn't perfect, because no matter how he did it, the medicinal effect could only reach 80% at most. If it couldn't reach 100%, it would be impossible to refine a perfect, transcendent pill. This was really difficult for him, who pursued perfection wholeheartedly, to accept. Looking at the time, only 5 minutes had passed. Anyway, it was still early, so he wasn't in a hurry. However, in these 5 minutes, there were already dozens of alchemists who had left helplessly. There was no other way. After losing the supplementary herbs, not only would the final medicinal effect be greatly reduced, but the success rate of refining would also be greatly reduced. This was simply a matter of life and death for alchemists who only knew how to memorize things and didn't know how to be flexible. Ling Xiao didn't look at them. The alchemy conference wasn't all for alchemists. If they failed, then so be it. Even in the alchemy world, not all of them were geniuses or masters. They still needed some diligent, ordinary alchemists. Otherwise, no one would refine pills that didn't make the grade. What he needed to do now was to refine this transcendent pill to perfection. He lay on the white bone throne with his eyes closed, looking like he was resting. However, in his mountain river world, he began to practice the alchemy process. The memories that existed in his mind that belonged to the other world surfaced once again. In these memories, there was a medical skill that broadened Ling Xiao's horizons. According to this medical skill, in fact, every medicinal herb contained some special ingredients. These were the key to the medicinal herb's effects. These ingredients could be extracted and could even be synthesized and artificially produced. In the other world, they relied on high technology to do it. However, Ling Xiao felt that it was a bit troublesome. It would be easier for them to extract it with their inner force. Therefore, this method should be feasible. However, this was only his speculation. Whether it would work or not, he still had to try it out. He didn't dare to rashly use the medicinal herbs on the alchemy platform to try it out. He could only rely on his mountain river martial spirit and powerful soul force to simulate it. During the simulation process, he actually slowly stood up. His body floated a foot high in the air, and then his hands actually moved involuntarily. What is that guy doing? Pointing fingers at the air? After all, Ling Xiao was in the most conspicuous place to refine pills. Therefore, everyone could see his every move clearly, whether it was the judges' seats, the preparation seats, or the audience seats. Ling Xiao's inexplicable actions confused everyone. Hysteria. Someone asked in confusion. Idiot, that's called a sensory test. Only alchemists with extremely powerful soul force can do it. Look at him. He seems to be waving his hands in the air. In fact, in front of him, there is a real alchemy platform. The person who said these words was naturally an expert who knew the ropes. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.